it.
Wham.
There's the screen. It's Golden. Matthew Golden. He's got an angle. Touchdown, Houston.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
UCF with the football. 10th play of the drive. They're going to hand it off to Harvey. And a yawning hole. Harvey gone. Touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And how about this? Coming the other way is BYU, taken away by Bywater, and he will take it to the house. Give me the football and 75 yards and the return for Bywater.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Red zone offense. The question for Cincinnati. There's your red zone touchdown, Wiley. Gritty time.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Gabriel pumps, looking deep, airing it out into the end zone. Stoops is there, got it, touchdown, Oklahoma.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in, 365 Sports. Smokey, you'll see him Wednesday when we're all back here. Just a little heads up and housekeeping. We will be off on Monday and Tuesday since it's we like to take a little extra time to celebrate our country's independence. We still are not very in favor of the Brits here. No, at 365 Sports. No, it's just, it falls on a weird day, Tuesday, so we'll take Monday and Tuesday. We'll be back on Wednesday all together. But today we have, and look, realignment news right off the bat, kind of. Ross Dellinger just tweeted this, Craig, about an hour ago. At a board meeting today, Pac-12 presented presidents with an update on what's termed accelerated progress on a TV deal. Only a framework was revealed with significant linear concepts, a more substantive framework expected by Football Media Days on July 21st, which God help them if they don't get that done by them. And Pac-12 leadership reiterated that any expansion decision will be made after a deal has been agreed to, and this puts San Diego State in a bind as Aztecs must give Mountain West formal notice of withdrawal by today to avoid a doubling of the $17 million exit fee for 2024. The news from the Pac-12 board meeting, or more like non-news, signals that San Diego State is likely at some point soon to reaffirm its position with the Mountain West that its original letter to the conference was not, in fact, a formal withdrawal.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously big news for people who follow Realignment. Been kind of circling this weekend for some news one way or the other, because that's just kind of where the tea leaves were, pointing, and kind of just with the way things have gone, that was just sort of that loose timeline again, right? We've had a few of those, so chalk this up as another one that just meant absolutely nothing in the end. And the next time I hear a timeline, I'm just not going to believe it, because what's the point? Like, barring it not being before the end of like next football season, I don't think timelines mean anything anymore, because they just shot through each one that was supposed to, have been something or been a date to figure out something. Now, if you want to look at them in the, the frame of, okay, well, this is just needing to know certain information by these certain dates. Okay, that's one thing. I don't really care so much about that, because I think I'm like everybody else. I want to know what the actual deal is. The discussions leading up to, if there's some drama, like the San Diego State thing, okay, that's of interest. But they're hashing out the linear. I don't, like that. That to me is another conversation, I guess, for people to have, but not one that I'm totally interested in at this point. I'm interested in just what it actually looks like, and no more of the, wondering and speculating. But there will be more of that, because there is no deal. So it's just going to leave at least, 2 or 3 more weeks, and probably more than that, given the way things have gone so far, for even more speculation. So if you have fun with that, then there's going to be more fun to be had. And I think it's unfortunate if you're a Pac-12 fan that was hoping to figure out something by today and just kind of be able to see, get out of my mentions. Like, we've got something. Like, leave me alone. As a Pac-12 fan, you've had these Big 12 folks and just everybody in general kind of talking about your conference, and it would be nice to say, like, okay, we've got one. We know what's going on, but now you have to wait. For Big 12 fans who have been waiting to hopefully poach, you got to wait some more. So, that's a bummer, man. I didn't think like 100% like something's for sure coming, but I was hoping that there would be something before July 4th, and maybe they would release something over the weekend. That'd be the dumbest thing possible. I don't think they're that dumb. So that leads you to believe that, in fact, based on what Ross had to say, that there's going to be more of a waiting game. The San Diego State part is interesting to me, though, because the way that I read the whole interaction the other day was because they said, well, no, that's not a formal letter of withdrawal, and the conference was like, yes, it was. I was led to believe that wouldn't that mean that you accepted their formal letter of resignation and therefore they got it in under the deadline? So I don't understand where this whole, well, now they've got the double the payment because it's going to be 34 rather than 17 because they didn't state that they were, do you see what I'm saying there? And I guess maybe they had to state they were going and have an official landing spot. Maybe that's the caveat, because technically they did state that they were leaving because you accepted it that way. So that means to me that you're only paying the half amount because you got it under the deadline. But again, maybe they're looking at it from you have a destination, you're officially entering that destination, and that's what would kick it in. So I'm a little confused on that part, but yeah, man, tough position for San Diego State to be in potentially, and just more of a waiting game for everyone who's been already waiting for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't, I agree with you on that. It's kind of confusing, but again, if San Diego State thought that there was a chance, which also the communication of this from the Pac-12 with the people they could be potentially doing business with feels terrible to me, in that, San Diego State goes out and sends this letter with the hope that something can get done by July 1st, only to find out on June 30th that, we hope to have a framework by July 21st before our media days, and kicking the can down the road another 3 weeks,
right,
which is what they've been really good at doing, is kicking the can down the road. Whether this gets done or not, there's significant linear concepts. Well, what's a concept, Craig?
It's something that's not actually come to fruition. It's an idea that may or may not actually happen.
Yeah. So there's all these words that keep popping up with the Pac-12 that are all ideas, but they're not done. And that's the thing with the Pac-12 that needs to get done. And here, San Diego State is, thinking that, and I get from their perspective, you have to, throw the line out in the water right then, thinking that, okay, if this is going to happen this year, we've got to be ready. And then not, because if the TV deal doesn't get it done until July 21st, and, it's not like you can go back to the Pac-12 and be like, look, I understand that, you guys had some things, but can you kick in for the $17 million that you guys don't have because you've got to deal with some other stuff too? That's not going to happen for them either. So, it's just, this continues to be all in all, and it's just a mess for the Pac-12. It's a mess. And if they get it worked out, great, but I hope they'd look back immediately after it's over and go, we took the longest possible road to this.
Yeah, I think there's still, and there will remain until there's, finality, there will remain the idea of okay, well, maybe they pull something out, or maybe they're working on something, right? Like in Ross's tweet, he talks about these, how did he phrase it, with the linear concepts? An accelerated progress on a TV deal, so to suggest that they're really ramping this bad boy up, which was kind of the thought, which is why people thought it would be done, in part, not only the exit fee for San Diego State, but just the fact that, hey, they've got to be kind of getting close here, but only a general framework revealed. That to me is so you're not even filling in the blanks just yet in a lot of ways. Significant linear concepts, a more substantive framework expected by media days on July 21st, like you said, but that's just more framework. That's not even still talking about the actual deal. So again, with these deadlines, I guess they, part of it is just assuming that something should have to happen by a certain point, and that just kind of goes everywhere. Or there's actual dates like the San Diego State that's well, you'd think they'd want to know and kind of need to know by a date, but I guess that doesn't matter as much as we think maybe it does, or it doesn't necessarily deter them from still completing something down the road, just not in the way that you thought they were going to. But yeah, it would feel like at this point, no matter who you are, that so many people have talked over such a long time now. And I'm not talking about like us, I'm talking about the actual presidents. And, just they're aware and have made known to every interviewer they've talked to about this subject that they're aware of what the talk is and the perception is and, the desires of the schools are and all that type of stuff. But I mean, at a certain point when all y'all are saying like, it's coming, and now we're like 6 months past when that was said at one point, and then there's this stretch where it's like, well, by media days, it's just like, damn, like, are they going to show up to media days and be like, well, we don't have an actual deal, but we've got like half of it. It's just, it would be maddening to me. Like, it's from my chair that I'm sitting in right now as just a college football fan and a realignment fan, to the point now where I have been saying this for a little bit now. I'm getting very fatigued by it, like I think a lot of people are, because the Pac-12 might have actually done the most brilliant thing in dragging this out so long that they've made people stop caring about it, so they're not under the microscope. Like, maybe they're so genius that they had this reverse psychology of, we'll just never sign a deal, and we'll wait you out, and then you'll just get fed up and move on to something else and leave us alone. So if that was the goal, then mission accomplished, I think, for some people. But yeah, I just assume that people have to be, for those who it matters to, like the people who are going to be affected by it, I would have to think that you're scratching your head a little bit at this point, man. I mean, you have to be. It's
I'll give
July.
I'll give you a deadline in my mind. They have the one that Ross put out there, July 21st, media days. That's 22 days from right now. That's
I know,
3
but
weeks
it
from
was
right now.
3 weeks ago, and it was a month before that.
But they can't hide anymore.
Right, Kliavkoff has to talk there. Yeah.
Kliavkoff has to talk there, and if he doesn't, that's terrible. That is awful. That would be in Pac-12 terms like, okay, the president is going to address everybody from the Rose Garden tonight about what's going on, and then you go to the cameras like, he got tied up. He's not going to talk about it because he doesn't know. And so if the 21st they don't have a TV deal and he can't talk about it, then that's going to be really bad. And that to me would be where it really starts to mirror what happened with not a mirror would be a little bit of a different thing, because this has maybe been a little bit more out in the open, but media days happen. There's not the answer. Like, you get past the wave of everybody there asking you questions, and then the big news comes out, like it did with the SEC and Texas and OU, although that happened at SEC media days or right thereafter around it. Before with Brett Zwerneman finding that out. And again, if one of the schools in that deal hadn't been so vehemently against it and angry about it, maybe no one would have known, until Texas know you wanted them to.
That's one of my, like, you could probably write an entire series, on the various what-ifs of college football. I mean, you definitely could write a series on the various what-ifs of college football, but that would be one. Like, what if Brett Zwerneman doesn't pop that story? I've said that on this show before a couple of times, but I really do wonder, like, what would have happened there? Would we all have just woken up one day a few weeks later and just the biggest surprise ever, OU and Texas are going? I mean, because it still was. It was still basically that. It's just that they didn't get the whole sizzle with it. They got some reporter from College Station breaking it via a newspaper and Twitter, so it didn't have the big boom to it, from like an orchestrated standpoint, like they could have probably pulled off had he not leaked that. So yeah, that was obviously intentional to take some of the steam out of that, but it was still a major deal. So yeah, I mean, I think for people like us who are just following along or some, times know a thing or two about a thing or two, it is, a long saga that's been going on. And like I said, I know a lot of people are fatigued by it, but it's still interesting, and it's just kind of crazy that we're still here, and now it's almost July, and we'll be July by the end of the weekend, and this is still basically where it always was from even a year ago. I mean, it's really not all that different. There's framework a year later, Paul.
Yeah.
Framework. And that's after all of the various networks have been talked about. And, today, as I'm sure we'll get to, ESPN laid off like 1 billion people again.
Yeah.
So they can continue paying their high-priced people and just, kind of, I guess they're going to have mostly like an upper tier and then just kind of drop and then kind of a mid-tier, and then I don't know if a lot of the surrounding supporting cast of ESPN is going to be as deep as it's ever been.
It's going to look like America.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. That's basically goes because they got to make money. They're not making enough money out of the billions they're making. They've got to make more, so they got to fire people to make more because Lord knows the people at the top aren't taking a pay cut, I'm sure. Yeah. So, that's going on. And so when you think about the ESPN aspect to this, there's that element of it. So, like, what kind of money are we talking? Because they've been rumored about, but like every network's been rumored about, and it's
and some of this money is also that their layoffs are going to make sure they have the money on the front end to like renew the NBA deal and all these other things that are coming. See the
NBA deal is going to be expensive for whoever gets that.
The Pac-12 has these problems negotiating with networks as well because you've got a whale coming in the water.
And shoot, they've been rumored to be. I don't think there's probably much to it. But maybe there is. I don't know, because clearly they're not going to have a lot of personality-driven programming unless it's just going to be Stephen A. and McAfee and like two other people on every single show, which is
Greenberg and
it's going to be this, that whole deal. But there's been rumors about maybe them getting into business with WWE further. I don't know how that would work because that's still just I don't like that marriage. Like, it's still sports and it's sports entertainment or whatever. So. That is a hot brand right now, though, and they've been linked to that, and they're going to be linked to like every sports property, but particularly the NBA. And then, if they wanted to dip into something else like WWE for a night a week or something, then that's more money. So where's all that coming from at a time when there's not a lot of it going around? That part of it's been interesting as well. So I'm still fascinated to learn who they end up working with, if it's an Apple thing, if it's an Ion, ESPN, whatever it is thing. And would love to know what the framework is, but I'd be awfully disappointed to just have framework after all this time and not have something more substantial to head into the weekend, pop some fireworks, and feel like if I'm a Pac-12 person, like, yes, this is what we're looking forward to, and instead it's like, oh no, another pushback of a pretend deadline or whatever.
And look, part of ESPN, like, I can get into a real complex talk about our business and how it's changed. Like, the fact that you and I are sitting here on YouTube we have 30,000 plus subscribers on this channel. That's 30,000 people that could be, or it's maybe even more because a lot of the people who watch will never subscribe. But let's just talk for the sake of simplicity in this discussion is where it comes to ESPN and media rights. We're just one entity that has 30,000 eyeballs that could, even if it's 20 minutes a day, not be watching ESPN because they like us as opposed to the personalities that are there. And now throw that in the water with all the rest of sports YouTube. ESPN is also competing with that.
Right.
And so that's new stuff they have. So when you're talking about...
Well, they're also killing off sports radio, basically.
Exactly.
Their own national radio brand is basically just going in the gutter because they haven't kept it... a well-oiled machine. They've neglected it, quite frankly, and they've made it very clear that they're just ESPN radio the way that we've always known it. Like, those glory days are way dead. They're not even trying to hide it. Yeah.
So now, because of the way that all of that is consumed, they have to go back to something that only they can do. So their personality and like talk-driven stuff, which is what we do, there has a lot more, even smaller, which we're not competition for ESPN. They're like in no way afraid of us, but they're afraid of us and everyone like us together. Like, we are one very small part of a big army that has taken away potential viewers and sponsorship dollars and all those things that ESPN has. What I think they should do is lean back into what made them great, because part of the problem I think they've had is they're not programming to the right group of people. They're programming to the people who are on Twitter all day long, which no matter what you think of how many people are on Twitter, which is still a crap load of people, it's still not the majority of people who are watching sports. If you just went back to some old school highlights and sports centers and even like lower tier live sports, I bet you would save that money and your viewership would go back up, because you can do things by showing highlights that we can't do because you have the rights to that video. And they don't really do that much anymore. Watch SportsCenter and you have to pray for the highlights to come up. Pray for them. Like, I hope I'm turning it on when I can watch the baseball highlights, as opposed to all the other stuff they have, thrown in the middle of it. And so that's my opinion, but, I'm not in charge of ESPN. I'd like to think they'd be making more money if I was, but, I'm not that smart. So
yeah, we're also not the TikTok generation, so maybe what we think is already outdated in some ways. But yeah, I think you're probably onto something there. turning it back to kind of what we were talking about, though, like they're obviously going a different direction. So how involved are they going to be in spending money, and how involved might they be with the Pac-12 or whoever it's going to be? We still don't know that for sure. Every network's been rumored or shot down at various points in this whole saga. Every dollar figure's been rumored or shot down at various points in this saga. Every date's been blown through. Every meeting's turned into nothing, basically. And every president that said something has, said something to either add fuel to the fire or calm the waters or whatever. But like I said a few minutes ago, I would imagine that no matter who you are, even if you're the most optimistic person, and I take that back. I know there are people that are just going to refuse to believe anything but positives. But I wouldn't be happy sitting here on June 30th, heading into July 4th weekend and kicking the can down the road again, publicly at least. Now, it might be a different story behind the scenes. I'm sure that'll be the storyline that's put out there. Like, no, everybody's cool, everybody's great. But I don't know. If it was me, I'd be squirming a little bit just because this has, just turned into the never-ending story, basically. And their media days are 3 weeks away. So this is the last deadline that I'm ever going to pay attention to in this story. If they don't have something by media days, I don't want to hear the word deadline ever again unless it's involving something completely different. Can we agree on that? Because there's been about 5 of them. So, 3 weeks away, Pac-12 media days. Esser get off the pot, basically, I think is probably how a lot of people feel about that. But, you say that and you're still going to be interested whenever that deal does drop, but just maybe not as interested as you once were when you felt like something was on the horizon, and now you're pushing it back once again.
All right, so I don't see Adam on the chat room, which is unfortunate because I'm going to read this story directly to him. But go ahead and put up the Pete Thamel tweet. According to Pete Thamel, San Diego State, Adam, is expected to deliver a notice to the Mountain West today that it will not withdraw from the league, as the school previously said it intended to do so. San Diego State plans to move forward as part of the Mountain West.
And here's another Pete Thamel follow-up. The Big 12 has signed and executed Brett Yormark's like, what's that? Bad Pac-12 news? Bat phone, baby. Yeah. The Big 12 has signed and executed its long-form television contracts with Fox and ESPN for the TV deal slated to begin in July of 25. The deal runs through 2031. This is the formalization and completion of the deal announced in October, the process of which began when the Big 12 opened its negotiation window nearly a year early. Their attention now moves to finalizing a data deal, which is expected in the coming weeks. And that was that data sharing thing that was mentioned. That's another little subplot to the Pac-12 negotiations. I know that Wilner's written some articles about the potential money that could be made there, and that was something that they were looking into, and that's thrown in there as like a potential money bump too. But, it's like one of those things when you have those ideas, it's like everybody's going to do that, though. So how much do you really make up? And I guess really you're only worried about what your schools are getting. But if you're already like behind the curve and then you get this little bump, but then everybody else gets that bump, you're basically where you were anyways. But, hey, more money is more money, so I don't think anybody's can complain about that. But the Big 12 had talked about that as well, and now that's where their focus is going to go, is in completing that data rights package, which will ensure more money, but how much is unknown. But as far as the TV deal goes, I think the timing's hilarious that they're announcing, hey, we're done. We're completely done. The ink's dry. We're set through 2031 with the Fox and ESPN. So, coincidental, maybe not, whatever you want to believe there. Funny timing and good news for the Big 12 because, it has been talked about as though it was done, but there were some things, as Mac Rhodes had told us, that were still being worked out, but now that's no longer the case. So now they can shift their focus, and that is all, ready to execute.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, there's just...
and I didn't mean to skip over what you just said about San Diego State, but that was just that timing was so perfect.
But it's all part of the same big pie of things. And look, San Diego State staying in the Mountain West for at least the rest of the terms of what they have to stay in, which I guess would mean that the 2024-2025 season, because their exit would have been for there. So at least another 2 years there for them.
Well, I mean, I want to hear more about this because I don't pretend to know like every detail of how all this works on every level at every moment. So I saw some people, and look, I know Twitter's basically anybody can scream whatever. So, take anything for what it's worth. But I did see some of the chatter about like what their options could be if the Pac-12 thing kind of got bungled timing wise, like it has apparently. There's talk like could they go independent for a couple years? I guess that was more of like if they weren't welcomed back. Which if you're, the conference, you're absolutely, I think, going to take advantage of making money off them as long as you possibly can. Especially if they may never go anywhere, and then you booted them out for them to just sit independent. So that wouldn't be smart. So I'm curious to hear more about that, but. I guess Thamel, if they're going to deliver that today, we'll probably have an update, I would think, at some point here in the next few hours or so. But that's a couple of interesting little notes for sure. And, I talk about the people who are probably squirming a little bit. San Diego State has absolutely got to be one of those people right now. And, look, they may have reassurances of, not right now, but very soon. But still, that's a frustrating place to be in, especially when it's kind of built up to almost feel like today would have been a great day, right? To be like, hey, happy July 4th, and boom, San Diego State is the newest member of the Pac-12, 10, whatever it's going to be. But, no, they may not be for a while longer, and that's got to be frustrating because so much kind of was building to that crescendo, and I don't know when that'll happen now at this point.
Yeah. Now, look, today, the theme of today's show was mostly kind of the last days in the G5 for the incoming schools, and we've got Ryan Aber going to talk about the last year in the Big 12 for Oklahoma and, what's kind of ahead for them. But, Ross Dellinger did us a favor and tweeted right before the show, so we got to start out with that story there from he and then, of course, Pete Thamel later on. But Brandon Helwig, who covers UCF, talks about the joy that is Orlando right now. Plus, we have a video from our friend Mark Daniels that the school put out, which we'll play that right after Helwig's over. Garrett, twas the night before the Big 12 that was pretty cool, little PR that they did there. Brandon Helwig from Rivals.com. He's next. This is 365 Sports.
It's the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels with major deals on these Hot Wheels. Get the legendary 2023 Dodge Challenger or Dodge Charger SXT, GT, or RT with total values up to $2,000, plus an extra $500 to first responders.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financials, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated marinated beef and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. 365 Sports. Our good friend Brandon Helwig, Rivals.com, covers UCF. And Brandon, this is... I mean, especially based on the video that they even put out with Mark Daniels, which we're going to play after your segment's over. This is Christmas morning, is it not?
Yeah, well, we're almost here. I guess it's more like Christmas Eve, or you're kind of like New Year's Eve. I know everyone's kind of awaiting the midnight when it becomes official. I know all the incoming schools, various events planned. I know UCF is kind of having something for VIPs at the President's House tonight, going to have sort of like a New Year's toast kind of thing at the stroke of midnight. So that's a question that I kind of have. Like, is this official at midnight Eastern time? Because UCF and Cincinnati are on the Eastern time zone, or does it become official Central time where the Big 12 has its headquarters? Regardless, there's going to be a lot of celebrating at midnight in Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great – probably should have figured that out before today. Everybody got on the same page as far as what time zone. But no, I think it's got to be probably East, because now there's the more of the Eastern time zone that's taking place. But, Brandon, can you just kind of describe sort of the countdown? I mean, we've touched base, and, there's been the excitement ever since the invitation. But now that it's finally starting to get here, there's media days in a couple of weeks. Can you just sort of describe the atmosphere and just sort of the thought process right now with UCF fans heading into next season?
Yeah, it's just finally becoming more real. Obviously, everyone was excited when the invitation was issued in September of 2021, but it kind of seemed, far away, because you still had to finish that season and had another kind of, lame duck year in the American. But the fact that, we're on the cusp of the inaugural Big 12 year, like I said, Media Days is coming up. The football schedule obviously came out a few months back, and, all the fans are kind of deciding, the road trips they want to go on, and, booking airfares at hotels. It just seems real. When you pick up the, college football previews, the Phil Steeler, what have you, and, seeing UCF listed amongst the Big 12 teams, it's just becoming real, and everyone's just so excited. I mean, this UCF program, I mean, they didn't even have a football program until 1979. And, there's probably Big 12 fans listening who were, going to football games long before then. And it's been a slow, but in some ways a fast journey in some other respects, as a Division III to 1AA to a Division 1A independent, and, all the different stops along the way. UCF, it was a short period of time, but UCF at one time was a member of the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, as a football-only member in the early 2000s, and, Conference USA to the American. So it's been quite a fun journey for UCF.
How, in your opinion, set up are they to make a significant run right off the bat? I mean, look, this is maybe the deepest team of the four coming in.
They're definitely being looked at, I would say, as like the one with probably the best chances to succeed early, Brandon, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I'm looking at everything. I mean, it's so hard to predict when, UCF hasn't been competing against Big 12 teams, so you really don't have a frame of reference. And there's not going to be any off games. Maybe in the American, or there'd be a game where you show up and even if you don't play your best, you're probably going to win. Well, that's not going to be the case in the Big 12. It's going to be 9 conference games. It's going to be some tough trips, and every place is going to be a fantastic environment. So it's not going to be easy. But I would agree with that, because I'm obviously going to be more familiar with the Houstons and Cincinnati of the world, being that they're coming from the American with UCF, just based on the roster and never coming back. I would agree with that. I think UCF is of the 4 newcomers is best positioned to have the most immediate success. I think when you look at, what would be a realistic, inaugural season goal for UCF, I think obviously you would want to still reach a bowl game and hit that 6-win mark. But, I don't know. I think UCF has a chance to do much better than that. I mean, I think it's all going to depend on, the returning quarterback, John Rice Plumlee. I think a lot of people forget, even though he was an older player, last year was his first yearly full season as a starting quarterback. He had been at Ole Miss and kind of played a little bit as a freshman with some injuries and had moved to wide receiver. And a lot of people are optimistic and excited about the growth he's going to make, especially working with a new quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. If he makes a jump and he stays healthy, I think UCF has the talent to make some noise. I'm not predicting that they're going to win the Big 12, but I mean, you never know. I think there is a chance for them to potentially, maybe, 9 or 10 wins. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think UCF is in pretty good shape.
Do you think they have the depth to withstand injuries and still maintain a run if they get on one?
Yeah, that's obviously that you put it out. I was about to say that a second ago. Do they have the depth? I think that's where they've, been trying to, get some guys in the transfer portal this past offseason to kind of have that depth, especially on defense. The injury bug, hit UCF last year towards the end of the season. Obviously, like I said, quarterback, they really don't have anyone else besides John Rice Plumlee that has, considerable experience, and he's, as a running quarterback, he's always prone to have a sprained ankle or a hamstring, which is what he had last season. So you got to keep him healthy. But that's a great question. What does UCF have the depth? Well, they have the depth on the offensive and defensive lines. I mean, time will tell. But, as far as, look at, beyond 2023, with Gus Malzahn, UCF is recruiting at a very high level. We'll see what pans out here, but there's a lot of rumors of some big recruiting announcements that, could be coming within the next week to kind of, maybe kind of be, orchestrated with the players to kind of have it coincide with the entering the Big 12. That's the rumor anyway. So they had a lot of great players visit during the month of June, and a lot of people are excited that, they're going to have a really good recruiting class for this 2024 class when it's all said and done.
So, Brandon, I know we're going to play a video here, but just I guess there's going to be a learning process, learning not just about who the players are and the coaches to an extent, but just like the traditions and just the athletic departments, kind of how they operate. How would you describe UCF from like a social media standpoint, a marketing standpoint? How do you feel they do on that end, and how do you feel like that will play into what people see as far as the Big 12?
Yeah, I think the thing that people are going to recognize, if they haven't already, if you're a Big 12 fan, when you look at UCF, that it's a relatively young fan base. I think the average age of alumni might be something like 38 years old. And, with younger fan bases, maybe you're a little bit more, where you're more in tune to social media. Maybe you're a little bit more brash in terms of, your opinions online. And,
sure.
And that's something I think some people have kind of recognized through the years if you look at UCF fans on Twitter. And, UCF, they kind of have a chip on their shoulder a little bit. I think that was sort of an attitude they had that was kind of cultivated through UCF's undefeated streak in 2017 and 2018. And obviously the former AD, Danny White, declaring UCF national champions, which ended up in the NCAA record book. I mean, it's in there that UCF was a national champion, but just stuff like that kind of like played into the mindset of the fan base. And, so I think that's one thing that Big 12 fans will definitely recognize about UCF.
The Baylor game's the first Big 12 home game. What do you expect the atmosphere around that to be like?
Yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers that it's a night game because, it's Florida and you really don't want to worry about day games. Maybe toward the end of the season, you definitely
We know, buddy. We know here in Texas.
You don't want to have it in Texas. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm hoping it's a night game because that will definitely, the atmosphere will just, whatever it's going to be, it'll just be kicked up a huge notch if it's at night. But it's just going to be an exciting time. I haven't heard anything official, but I think there might be a good possibility that UCF honors, because it'll be 10 years since the 2013 team that went on to play in the you know what I'm going.
Oh, yeah.
That played in the Fiesta Bowl and beat Baylor, and it would just be a natural to honor that team at that game. So that'll kind of add to the atmosphere and the intrigue, especially with Baylor being the first home game.
Brandon, were you there in Arizona?
Yeah. I was. That was just, that was just a surreal feeling. I was doing an interview with someone else earlier today with The Athletic. Chris Benini was asking me sort of about the journey of UCF and kind of my perspective, kind of being in tune with the fan base. And it was really probably one of the very first moments that, you kind of got the sense that UCF, could potentially be on to bigger and better things. It was just, a great atmosphere. It was a tough trip, for UCF fans. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of UCF fans. It was much different a few years later when they went to the Peach Bowl in Atlanta and UCF had more fans than Auburn. But that was just a great moment, and just to kind of feel that you belonged on that stage and you could be just as competitive. Because you remember they were talking how Baylor was gonna, whatever the confidence points or whatever they were talking about on ESPN, about how Baylor was just pretty much gonna demolish UCF, and it was pretty much the other way around. And
we got. Craig and I, and Smokey's not here today, but we got a very interesting behind-the-scenes look of everything that was going on that week. But for Baylor, instead of that being a big week of triumph, it was absolute stress. We're having it like Smokey and I are on the air having to send Craig to a media availability to ask Coach Briles if he's leaving the school to go to Texas. And so what should have been a big week for them, out like their out-of-state bowl game and all that stuff, really started to kind of unwind.
There was that, but that was a distraction of some sort. But Brandon, make no mistake, they were overlooking UCF entirely. Yeah. And I think after that game, that kind of woke everybody's eyes up to, all right, well, wait a second.
You want to talk about Big 12 fans. A lot of UCF fans did not have very good experiences with Baylor fans. It's not like it was anything, over the top nasty or thing, but just the fact that Baylor fans, they thought in the week leading up to the game, they were interacting with them around the Phoenix area, how they were dismissive and they were kind of mocking UCF a little bit, like, oh, sorry you guys made this long trip only to get beat by 60 points, and just kind of side comments that were made before the game. And so a lot of, we'll see. People have always asked about, obviously there's no geographic rivals for UCF. They do have a rivalry with Cincinnati, I'd say, being in the same conference, but it'll be interesting to see if there'll be some kind of mini rivalries we'll set up amongst teams. It'll be obviously be based on what happens on the field, but maybe, who knows, there could be a little bit of something with Baylor to develop.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think anything's on the table right now. I could definitely see that. And, just amazing to think about. The timing is so perfect for that to happen, for the Baylor game hosting them. I hadn't even thought about that at all, but that's just too perfect. All right, let you go here, but outside of like the Baylor, the 10-year, and that'll be a lot of fun. When you initially saw that schedule and you see, okay, Cincinnati, so there's an automatic rivalry game. Was it the OU road trip that popped out? Was it going to K-State? What initially jumped out as far as just something exciting off of the new schedule for you as a UCF fan?
Yeah, I think it was the first one you mentioned. It was the road game at Oklahoma. I think UCF fans were a little disappointed they didn't get the opportunity to host Oklahoma or Texas in the 1 year they're going to share the league with them. But I think it's the fact that UCF is playing Oklahoma, and that was a little bit of a controversial deal. UCF's former quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, transferred to Oklahoma. And there was kind of some controversy when he left, and of course anyone how the portal goes when a player leaves. So that'll be an interesting dynamic with Dylan Gabriel being the quarterback at Oklahoma, knowing that he started his career at UCF. And I know that's the one game I know that'll probably have the largest representation of UCF fans. I think there's a nonstop that flies from Orlando to Oklahoma City on Southwest. I know that's already sold out of UCF fans. Went ahead and booked that one solid. So that should be, I think that's kind of the game that a lot of fans have circled on their calendar to attend this year.
Brandon Helwig, Rivals.com, covers UCF. Brandon, thank you so much. I will be at that UCF game on September 30th. So
I will see you then.
All right. We'll work something out. All right. Talk to you soon. Brandon Helwig, definitely. Rivals.com. Certainly appreciate it. All right. Before we take a break to go to Grayson Grundhafer, this is Mark Daniels, voice of the Knights, and the video that they put out yesterday, which I thought was really wonderfully and brilliantly done, and sent to us by a ton of UCF and Big 12 fans.
'Twas the night before the Big 12. 'Twas the night before the Big 12, and all across Knight Nation, the countdown to this moment now becomes a celebration. To the coaches and the athletes and leaders from the past, we salute you and your efforts. Your impact will forever last. To the fans and alumni who have grown over the years, we recall many big moments, some happy, some with tears. We ran, we blocked, we battled, we fought both home and away. And now we embark on a new journey that begins in just one day. We will tackle Bears and Red Raiders, take on Cyclones and Wildcats, go head-to-head with Horned Frogs and Cowboys with big hats. We'll go to Cincinnati, Lawrence, and stadiums among mountains. We'll crisscross all of Texas and hunt for more wins. New friends would also travel, see the beach and Mickey Mouse. They'll be immersed in black and gold and experience the bounce house. They will marvel at Zombie Nation, brace themselves as the stadium shakes, because here at UCF, it's the memorable game day we create. Seems like only yesterday we're playing in a field, and now it's time for a new beginning where our true potential will be revealed. There are records to be broken, titles to be won, memories to be made. It's all just begun. We are ready to lift our voices loud, unified in chord. As knights, we do stand tall with our armor and our sword. The moment has arrived. A new era is upon. Join together as we shout, "Go Knights! Charge on!" Welcome to the Big 12.
You think one take?
For him, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think one take.
I have confidence in him.
Yeah, I think one take. It would not have been one take for me. I'd have messed it up. I'd have gotten halfway through and flubbed it, and then we'd have to start over.
May not see you and Smokey do these promos after the show, so yeah, I know.
I can promise you that. Even with a script in front of me, sometimes you just get so excited to do these pre-recorded things that they don't. But that's the glory of pre-recorded. The next time we have Mark Daniels, I'm going to ask him if he got one take, because it feels like that was one take.
Yeah, that was cool. That's part of why I asked about the social media side of just kind of what the Knights bring to the table, and they definitely got a feisty fan base. It definitely leans young, which is good. But yeah, I think having fun is fun, and so they have some fun with entering the Big 12 with that video and just various other things, and he loved to see it and loved to hear what Brandon had to say about a lot of things. That's wild, though, the 10-year anniversary of the Fiesta Bowl, just the timing of that and hosting Baylor. But it really was, that's a story for another day. That really was a wild time behind the scenes. That's not why they lost. I mean, it probably played into it, but that was not why they lost. They totally underestimated UCF. Like, they were just so cocky that they just didn't think UCF had a chance, I don't think. And then you add in distractions throughout the week, and it was a bad recipe for them. And UCF, Storm Johnson, Blake Bortles, and that whole crew put it on them. And, yeah, you'd love to go back and have a redo, because to have that Fiesta Bowl trophy sitting there would be a pretty big deal. And you don't get a lot of cracks at those things. So, yeah, that'll be fun to – well, for UCF fans, that'll be fun to remember when the time comes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, when we come back, Grayson Grudhafer, SicEm365.com. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they could focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of SicEm365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Grayson Grundhafer, SicEm365.com, joins us now in his normal Friday spot. And this Baylor segment also brought to you by Richard Carr Motors, as are all Baylor athletic segments here on 365 Sports. And Grayson, we were talking about this with someone earlier this week, but has June become kind of the new January almost for commitments and recruiting, the way that it's become a flurry all across the country?
It definitely has for Baylor. I mean, this is just a situation where Baylor really focuses on the month of June. They put 3 official visits in the month of June. They've done that for 3 straight years now. And I mean, when it comes to commitments, it's so much different than signing day, though, right? Because you still got a significant amount of time before these guys are even able to sign. So it's a little bit different. But as far as commitments go, this does feel like the busiest time of the year when you start looking around the country and you're seeing teams, with a ton of momentum. You've seen TCU, Texas Tech have momentum along with Baylor, other programs as well. But it's funny because as you get going towards through the summer and into the fall, there's chances where guys maybe flip and start looking elsewhere and things like that. And that's why it's such a cool time, but also a time where it's like you got to hold on to your guys as well, because as fall approaches, teams start looking around, and obviously players can start looking around as well. And so that makes it really intriguing, even as you get closer to December, the early signing period, and then the late signing period as well in February.
All right, so Grayson, if we try to break down every recruit since we last talked to you, we take up this whole segment. So let's not do that. And for those that want to hear more about Tristan Santoro, the offensive lineman, or about the new running back commit in Joseph Dodds, they can listen to the Bearcast. Or there's plenty of other things that have been written and talked about as far as those two go. But there's been 2 since then. So let's focus on those because we haven't talked about them. And Kylan Reed from Mansfield Summit, the linebacker, pledging to Baylor this week. Another linebacker in Bo Tate out of Utah. We know that just linebacker in general, there's different positions, of course, but in general, it's a need on paper. So to get 2 guys this week, and those 2 in particular, what does that mean, and what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's huge for Christian Robinson. I mean, this is his first year with the Baylor staff, first recruiting cycle with the staff, that is. And so it's been big for him to land these two, because as we've gone through the summer, there have been priority linebackers who came and went when you think about Anthony Smith or Ashton Woods. But guys like Kylan Reed, he's been on the radar for a really long time, and a guy that Baylor's really wanted for a long time. And then Bo Tate, who's a little bit more of a recent offer. But both of those guys bring a lot to the table. I expect Reed to fit into the Mike linebacker position. And then for Bo, I'm expecting him to play well during his time at Baylor. So, yeah, they're set at linebacker now. Two really good prospects. Reed is actually my top-rated prospect in Baylor's class now. And Bo Tate, a high 3-star type guy as well. Both have pretty good offer lists as well when you look at Power 5 offers and things like that. So, in general, big week for the Baylor staff, and especially for Christian Robinson.
Grayson, linebacker, obviously an area of need that they've tackled. They did running back. What do you think the next wave of? Do you think it may come like this, where you get 2 linebackers and then maybe 2 defensive ends or two wide receivers? What do you think the next area of need they really need to wrap their arms around is?
Well, I think right now, as we kind of look forward, there are decisions that are upcoming, and I think the potential positions that you're looking at there are defensive line. 2 decisions coming up there with Alex Foster and Sterling Brooks. They're making their decisions soon. Foster looking like he's between, Baylor, Georgia Tech. There's, Mississippi State still hanging around, as is Arkansas, but Baylor in a decent spot there. And then Sterling Brooks is actually going to be between Baylor and TCU. So 2 decisions that I think will come up in the next week or so, maybe even sooner than that. So those 2 to pay attention to, and then the tight end position. Baylor doesn't have a tight end commit in this class right now. I know Graydon Grimes could be a tight end, but I think he's going to start off on the defensive side of the ball. So they don't have a tight end. But Dylan Hipp, the tight end out of Arizona, he's making his decision likely in the next week, I would think, between Baylor and Ole Miss. So a lot of battles coming up for Baylor right now. But those are 2 positions I would definitely focus on.
So no camps. So kind of how does it work right now in terms of the recruiting side of things and just the build up towards media days?
So camps are over until the end of July. They'll have one more when the dead period ends, because currently we're in the dead period. It started a couple days ago. It'll go towards the end of July, but there's a little period in there at the end of July where you can have visits and you can have a camp, and so there's a chance that Baylor utilizes that going forward. But that's kind of the main thing that's on the schedule right now. As far as other stuff, like you said, Big 12 Media Days, I think a lot of the focus is going to be on the football team during this month of July as well, and evaluations, of course, as we get closer and closer to the end of July when they could potentially have visitors on campus.
I remember I asked you one time about, what is their identity? What is their mantra? And you said person over player. And I was like, well, yeah, but I was looking at it more. I was thinking of it more as just a personal thing. But, I mean, that really, you were right. That is their mantra is person over player. And it may not connect in people's brains when it comes to college athletics, but it seems like it's been an awfully successful angle, fitting for Baylor too, just given kind of their place in the grand scheme of things and their identity. But that seems to have really resonated with guys, hasn't it?
Every single Baylor commit mentions person over player. Every single one that has happened over the last, couple years, and especially as we've looked into this class and the more, recent ones. Kylan Reed mentioned that was the biggest thing for him in his decision was person over player. Bo Tate mentioned it extensively as well. All these guys have. And so while it doesn't resonate to the same level with every single recruit, we've mentioned this on the Bearcast, the guys that Baylor wants are the guys where that message really resonates with them, because I think a big part of that is, it's person over player, but it also, I think it does, pitch to a recruit that Baylor is more than just a football program. It's about building you as a person and making sure that you're having, a great time and building a great life, through Baylor athletics. And I think that's really, really important and something that they've really been preaching. That's not just all about football. And it definitely resonates with recruits. And I think we're seeing that in this month of June, where they've had 3 official visits and they've been able to land 7 commits in the month.
How much do recruits talk about NIL to you and that being a factor?
Not very much. And I would say that most of the time when a recruit mentions NIL a lot, they usually don't end up at Baylor. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think some prospects really have their mind set on, NIL, or, they might be getting offered something that you just simply can't turn down. And so that's the two sides of this. But I think in general, I think that recruits pay attention to it, of course. But I think the guys that Baylor lands aren't going to be the guys that necessarily that's their top priority. And I honestly think that's a good thing for a program like Big.
So do you think that they target guys who just will worry about it on the back end?
I think so. But I also think it's one of those things where you might find a guy before he has a bunch of offers, and it's not really a thing for that prospect at that time. But then as you get going closer and closer to the end of their recruitment, you start to see, these big schools have started to offer. Now the NIL is coming. The offers are coming NIL-wise, and then it becomes a bigger factor in their recruitment. So I don't think it's necessarily you just, strategize on finding the kids that don't care about NIL, but I think it's more so finding prospects who that's not their biggest reason, for going to a specific school.
All right, final thing here, Grayson. It is about to be, here in a few hours, the official beginning of the new 4 schools into the Big 12 Conference, UCF and Houston and BYU and Cincinnati. And you may have seen some of the celebrations and all that all over Twitter. But what are your thoughts on, what's a program for you that you're eyeing that you think has a lot of potential, that you think could really kind of shake things up or be hyper competitive in the Big 12, sooner rather than later? What's maybe one of the schools that really stands out to you amongst the 4?
Yeah, I've always been intrigued by UCF. For whatever reason, that's just been a program that I just feel like there's something there. And obviously they've won at a very high level. They've been really, really good in past seasons. And they've been pretty consistent as well, I would say, as being a really solid group of 5 team. And now as a Power 5 program, I feel like being in Florida, there's great opportunity to recruit at a higher level there for them than they have in the past. I think, again, they've built a good culture there. I think they're going to invest in that program, which is key as well. And so, I think that's the program that I'm most intrigued by. Honestly, these answers change all the time. And if you would have asked me this, a year ago, I might have said Cincinnati because they had Luke Fickell as a big reason for that. But with him gone, I see it more as kind of an even playing field. Let's just look at the specific programs. And when I do that, I think I'm most intrigued by Central Florida and most optimistic about their chances in the Big 12 long term and in year 1.
Well, that's great. You've made some new UCF fans, I'm sure. Meanwhile, BYU, Cincy, and Houston, Grayson clearly hates you. He doesn't think that you have a chance to compete. No, I'm just kidding. We did learn something very funny, though, from UCF friend that we just talked to. They host Baylor. It's the 10-year anniversary of the Fiesta Bowl. Did you realize that?
Wow, and I was at that game.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's crazy. That's going to add a little bit more juice to it, I guess, even though
he's
not
already
many people still there.
He's already teased that they're like, yeah, they got that one circled to probably have some fun with that, the 10-year anniversary of the Fiesta Bowl. So, yeah, that's another little subplot to that game that I had no idea about.
That's awesome. That's a really cool one. That game was what a game that was.
Yeah, wow. That was something, wasn't it? That was something.
that was a week.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
Good old Blake Bortles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. What a week. What a week. All right, Grayson, enjoy the holiday. Happy 4th, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
It's Grayson Grudhay for SicEm365.com. Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman is next, talking OU and how did Bill Connolly put it? Upside but no depth.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how he put it, yeah.
Upside but no depth with Oklahoma. Curious to hear what Ryan Aber has to say, plus how they feel it's the opposite of what was going on at UCF for Oklahoma. They're now running out the clock in the Big 12. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. sunsets. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Have Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they could focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of SicEm365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman joins us now, a longtime friend of the show. Haven't had him on in a while. And Ryan, this is, we were having guests around the schools that this is their last day, not in the Big 12. And for Oklahoma, this is this July 1st starts the first day of their last year in the conference. What is the general feeling now that it is actually here and real among a fan base that I know was excited to join the SEC, but a little bit split on the fact that they know that they're going to have to give up some things that they've been well in control of to do that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around the program as that clock ticks down toward joining the SEC. You saw it a couple weeks ago when the 2024 SEC opponents were announced, the amount of fans who turned out for that gathering. People are excited about the future, but also there's a bit of trepidation given what happened last year about their last year in the Big 12 and their ability to be ready to make that move right off the bat when you talk about the on-field issues.
Ryan, I know that things seem like they've gone pretty smoothly, recruiting, transfer portal, and we can dip into some of that, but there was a little bit of, I guess, rustling around yesterday when it was announced that Turnipseed, Brent Venables, right-hand guy, was going to be leaving the program, and just odd timing with it being almost July at this point. I had seen some various rumblings, like, family stuff or whatever, but can you, I guess, explain the significance of Thad Turnipseed and then obviously his moving on?
I mean, to look at the significance of Thad Turnipseed, you just look at what he was able to do at Alabama and Clemson. And, obviously Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney played the biggest roles, but Thad Turnipseed was right next to both of those guys when you talk about building up facilities and the fervor in the fan base to get those programs where they were. And Brent Venables hoped that Thad Turnipseed would be the same thing for him at OU. He is the driving force behind the $175 million football facility that was voted on by the Board of Regents just a few months ago, and will be getting underway here in the next couple of years. But it was a big surprise because yesterday there seemed to be some movement on some things related to that facility, and then all of a sudden Thad Turnipseed is gone. It'll be interesting to see what Brent Venables elects to do with that role, whether it's a big picture guy like Thad Turnipseed, or if it's something else to sort of hone in on a specific part of the program. But no doubt a big loss for the Sooners.
Ryan, do you think that they have overall depth to make a run to the conference title this year?
Oh, I think certainly the talent is there. But a lot of things have to come together to do it. They've got to be much better defensively. Brent Venables got some flack a couple weeks ago at that SEC scheduling announcement for saying, hey, if our defense is better, they got a chance to win 10 games and hang a banner up. Well, the fact is he's right, but it's got to be significantly better. They've got to be better at getting after the quarterback. They were tied for last in the Big 12 during conference play last year in sacks after a really good start in non-conference play. And they've got to get better up front, got a lot of additions in the transfer portal. The question is, which one of those guys are going to hit, if any, and they need a couple of those guys at least to come through in a big way. They should be better on the back end with Peyton Bowen back there at safety, the freshman 5-star who really had a good spring and looks the part during the spring game. And on offense, they just got to be as good as they were last year. Now, they lose some playmakers in Marvin Mims and Braden Willis and a couple of others, but they certainly got the potential there. But there are a lot of question marks that could fall either direction.
I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but how long do you think it will take for the Jackson Arnold talk the moment that Dylan Gabriel struggles a little bit? It just seems like there's an immense amount of hope placed on this young man moving forward.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's a lot of fervor around Jackson Arnold, but Dylan Gabriel's a pretty good college quarterback.
Yeah.
Around here at least, I don't know what the perception is down there nationally, but people around here at least have been a little bit spoiled by OU's quarterback play during the Lincoln Riley era. When you think about Baker Mayfield, who was actually in town today for a kids camp, Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I mean, that run that they had, and heck, even Spencer Rattler to some degree, and then Caleb Williams to a larger degree, could leave your jaw dropped at times. Dylan Gabriel isn't that kind of player, but still a really solid college quarterback. But there's no doubt that there's a lot of anticipation for Jackson Arnold stepping in and taking over that role. I think it's a little bit different than a couple of years ago when Caleb Williams slid in for Spencer Rattler after some early struggles. Dylan Gabriel's a lot more experienced than Rattler was, and I think has solidified himself a lot more as the starter than Spencer Rattler did. So there are going to be some calls, certainly, if something like that happens. But, in my mind, when I look at all the problems that they had last year, and there were quite a bit of them, Dylan Gabriel in the quarterback pool came way, way down the list. And they can still win a lot of games and win at least a Big 12 title with Dylan Gabriel as their quarterback.
Do you feel they can withstand it better with Jackson Arnold as the backup if the same thing happens to Dylan Gabriel last year where he's out for a couple games?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, you just saw the sort of scramble mode that they were put in last year when Dylan Gabriel went down. Davis Bevel wasn't able to handle that situation. They wound up having to go basically to a wildcat system with Braden Willis and a couple of other players at quarterback who aren't normally quarterbacks. Certainly this year, if something were to happen to Dylan Gabriel, they'd feel more than comfortable with Jackson Arnold sliding in there as their replacement in at least the short term, if not the long term. So they feel much better about the quarterback room now than they did a year ago when you're talking about Davis Bevel and a freshman Nick Evers, who is now transferred to Wisconsin, but clearly wasn't at the same level as Jackson Arnold is.
What would you say has been the most significant or interesting admission or, I guess, change, pivot publicly from what they did last year from Brent Venables this offseason? Was it just the pursuit of talent? Was it a particular schematic, maybe area of focus? Like, what do you think was most significant for them as far as turning the corner this year?
Well, I think the difference, in my mind, the biggest difference is the way that they really attack the transfer portal when it comes to defensive linemen in particular. To go out and get Jacob Lacey from Notre Dame, to get Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest, Trace Ford from Oklahoma State right up the road, Devon Sears from Texas State. They really made it a point to beef up their defensive front. That defensive front was one that showed signs of hope during non-conference play a year ago, then completely fell off the cliff. And they've got to get better there, not only for this year in the SEC or this year in the Big 12, their last year there, but moving toward the SEC. That to me is the biggest upgrade that they've got to make, and it's certainly been an area of focus for the Sooners in the offseason, and they continued it really over the last couple of weeks as they've added a couple more pieces in the JUCO and transfer portal route to try to beef up that group even more.
So are you preparing emotionally for what will be your last Big 12 Media Days?
I'm getting there. It's a little bit different, going to miss some of the things down in the Arlington DFW area, but got to get our fill of Campese's and Papado and other things like that. Babe's Chicken, favorite of columnist Barry Trammell. So I'm sure we'll be making some of those stops, but it's going to be weird being there for probably the last time, and then thinking about a year from now being wherever SEC Media Days is this year. I think it's in Nashville, but it's a completely different vibe in that league for sure.
Nashville's got nothing on the parking lot of Arlington, especially in the summertime, right? I mean, Arlington is just such a sexy spot for me. No, I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun, obviously. Then even like the media meetings, was it Destin and Hoover, Alabama? That's going to be a pretty cool change, I think, for the media folks to be able to experience. Last thing for me, Ryan, when you saw that initial Big 12 schedule, I think there was probably a thought that the league was going to punish Oklahoma or Texas and give them some murderer's row. I think Oklahoma might have the easiest schedule of the entire conference. Would you agree with that to some extent?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue. I think there was a balance between, difficulty of schedule and giving them some marquee home games or things like that. How do you balance all that? But I think it worked out well for OU. They get to go to a couple places they haven't been, at least in a while. BYU have never been there and get to play at Cincinnati. They avoid Kansas State, a team that's given them all kinds of problems over the last few years. Texas Tech, who beat them last year. So I think the schedule lines up as favorably as possible for the Sooners, and they're going to need that to try to build some momentum here in their last year in the league.
Ryan Aber, the Oklahoman. Ryan, we'll see you in a couple weeks in Arlington.
Sounds great. It's right up on us. It's crazy how quick it comes, but it's almost football season.
It is. Ryan, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Happy 4th.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on.
There you go. Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman here with us.
Yeah, I think they definitely, man, they lucked out so much on that schedule. I mean, they really did when you look at that. And, fascinating. There's such a far time to pass before we dip into like the SEC schedule. We could have easily talked about that, but that's like, there's a football season that has to take place before that even occurs. But didn't want to break here just right away because are you seeing all these reports trickling down on Twitter about San Diego State? Dennis Dodd, I'm seeing Nicole Auerbach. We got Pat. Name a national reporter, and they're basically now all echoing the same thing that Pete Thamel kind of put out there earlier. San Diego State, per Dennis Dodd, via Pete Thamel, staying in the Mountain West. School officials told CBS Sports on Friday afternoon. Thamel first to report. The decision, per Dodd, seems to hinge on two aspects: uncertainty over the Pac-12's future and the ability of San Diego State to pay the $34 million exit fee. Nicole Auerbach added that San Diego State has informed the Mountain West they're not leaving. Today was the deadline, but she adds that the Mountain West took the original letter as the official notice of withdrawal, so we'll see what happens next. And that was the question that I had, too, of like, so if you're treating them as though they told you that they're leaving, then that was before the deadline. So then, therefore, there should be a $17 million rather than a $34 million penalty. But obviously the problem for San Diego State is there's nowhere to go. They don't have a place to go with the Pac-12. So that part of it's kind of confusing. But the main thing you need to know, San Diego State, for at least the time being, is staying in the Mountain West. And I hate that for like Joel and some of the really cool San Diego State folks that I know listen from time to time. And I've come across a little bit on social media. And then Dennis Dodd added this, and we can break or do what we need to do here. But just kind of following up on this, it should also be mentioned that whatever deal Pac-12 gets may not, okay, that's speculative, but may not include an equal share for San Diego State. In other words, splitting the pie 11 or 12 ways instead of 10 would reduce the per-school payout for existing members. And we know that. That's the part of the deal with the new four. They're not making the same money right away. TCU, West Virginia didn't make it right away. They had to wait a couple years, and they eventually got their full allotment. So maybe I guess the thought was that they would just jump right into the deep end and get the same out of the gates. But that's a little bit speculative. But bottom line, San Diego State's not joining the Pac-12, at least for right now.
Yeah, and it is like San Diego State here. They've been, especially and very publicly, you did a great column in The Athletic about, look, we are ready for this next move. We've been doing everything, Snapdragon Stadium, all these different things to be able to say to whoever wants to invite us, we are ready for the next move. And ultimately, you have to have somewhere to move to when you do. So that's not there for them. And, this with the Pac-12 has been such a roller coaster. Yeah, it's a bummer. I still think they'll be able to be in that league or another league sometime in the future. But, again, those things are so –
it's timing. It's that's not a guarantee that you just start the clock over, right? I guess is what you're saying. You don't just like, all right, well, that didn't work out. Start it back over at 2 years and count it down, and then maybe we'll have an opportunity to get in some. Yeah, I don't know. Certainly, there's the Big 12 opportunity potentially. That I wonder if Brett Yormark's sitting there swimming like a shark right now, circling like a shark, going, oh. You guys are maybe a little bit more open for a discussion than you were when you thought that you were guaranteed to be going to the Pac all these past few months. The other part of this is not only is it a bummer for San Diego State for now, but SMU is not even being mentioned. And this is one of those things I've been talking about with them is like part of the reason why I was so curious about the deal is not like from a Big 12 standpoint or is the Pac going to dissolve standpoint, is I really am interested about the realignment piece of it as far as San Diego State, but really SMU because – That's a major deal for that school to potentially land in the Pac-12, regardless of what you think about its future or its money or whatever. Like for SMU, that's a major deal. And there's been a little bit of arrogance, which has been seen over social media. Every fan base has it, but SMU's pocket of folks have been pretty confident that they're going to get this done. They'll even pay their way in or whatever. And this doesn't give me optimism that that's going to happen in the near future either, unless here in 3 weeks with media days they finally are like, here's this grand project we've been working on, and here's our new members, and here's our TV deal, and here's all of these things. So yeah, this not only affects San Diego State but also SMU, and to a lesser extent anybody else who was hoping that we were going to get something in the way of expansion for the Pac-12 here really soon.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like, it's down to this point where if I'm them, I don't even want to think about expansion, until I can figure out keeping the 10 I've got together.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, it's like that was kind of the idea, right? Is you're going to get the TV deal done, and then you'll move on the expansion piece. And the timing just hasn't worked out to where all of the speculation of how that could unravel has actually, worked that way. It's just been more of kind of the same story, just delayed a few more weeks, and then kind of the same story a few weeks later. But yeah, that's part of it that's very uncertain at the moment here.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Craig and I dive into something that we know so much about, the IRS. But
Erwin R. Shyster?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Money Inc. with Ted DiBiase?
Yeah. No, I don't.
We could actually bring that back to sports because Ted DiBiase Sr., along with his son Ted DiBiase Jr., mentioned in the lawsuit against Brett Favre with the Southern Mississippi facilities. So I brought it all back together to sports. See that?
We're living in weird times.
We are.
Where Ted DiBiase and Brett Favre are getting sued or in criminal trouble with the state of Mississippi. We are in weird times. But no, the NIL collectives have been dealt a blow by the IRS, including the Texas One Foundation, which was one of the first ones to do what they were doing. We'll talk about that next in Chris Del Conte's letter to them. This is 365 Sports.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to the water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
In the next segment, Jake Hatch, KSL Sports Zone. BYU also does Locked On Cougars podcast as well, and we'll talk about BYU. What a huge day this is for them. And then at 5:35, Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Union Tribune on today's news that they're staying in the Mountain West and what that means in the short term and the long term for the Aztecs. But Craig, yesterday, I mean, it's been the last couple days, but yesterday, Chris Del Conte, the AD at Texas, sent a letter to the alumni and particularly the members of the Texas One Foundation. That is their one of their NIL collectives, their big one, and saying that, look, the IRS has made a decision on what these are, so you need to make sure that you contact a tax professional if you've made a donation. So this is one of the bigger ones, and there are a lot of NIL collectives who are going to have to go through this, but Texas One was the one who set up the $50,000 a piece for the offensive line, and it was under a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. And the IRS has now said that is not, that you can't be a 501c3 and be an NIL collective, that they are mutually exclusive to each other. And this was always going to happen because the IRS has so much to get around to. I'm not however you feel about the IRS, the way I've heard them describe is, I'm not going to use that term because they're necessary, but they're not exactly efficient for what we need in this country. But when they get around to things like this, it's not going to go the way that you want it to go most of the time. And so they've closed this loophole, and some collectives were ready for it. Probably the ones who started out later and saw it coming and needed to be ready for it. But here the IRS has closed this big NIL loophole, and I wonder how they're going to reinvent getting this money in, because part of the benefit to people to donate to Texas One or the Texas A&M group or wherever it was that was a 501c3 was you were getting to deduct it from your taxes. Now that will no longer be the case. So some NIL money, at least in the short term, will probably dry up.
Yeah, well, I don't know about for Texas if it'll really dry up, but you might just have a little
slow
bit
down,
less.
As opposed to a hose, it might be a trickle for a minute before they figure it out.
Trickle is
still better than
the
most
Rapids
hoses
of Colorado
Yeah.
compared to probably most everybody else in the league. But so basically the gist of this is they were ready to just free wheel and deal and do whatever and take advantage of the more relaxed state laws. But now that they are coming down on the tax part of the 501c3s, that's the big to-do, right?
Yeah.
That's basically the big to-do is people can't just write it off of their taxes.
No, because it's
donating
not
to NIL.
Yeah, because you can't say, okay, I've donated to this charitable organization. Okay, well, what does the organization do? Oh, well, it enabled my school to get a quarterback.
Right.
Like, okay, well, how does that help the world? They're not Greenpeace. So it was always going to come. It never was going to make sense. They had a good run of doing it, but I think the smart people knew that eventually the loophole was going to close.
Yeah, I just was thinking about Mac Rhodes and what he said a couple weeks ago about the new laws in Texas and how Baylor was going to basically, I mean, this is not the exact same story, but that they were going to play by NCAA rules rather than by Texas rules. And I know that this is a different thing here, but I felt like Texas and A&M were, bound to just be kind of rolling and get this thing going, but this certainly changes things a bit when you add in this element that, like you said, was pretty much you had to figure was going to be coming at some point or another. Like the IRS is not going to get theirs and the government's not going to get theirs. I mean, this was expected to some extent, but interesting to see them have to kind of hit pause and to not already have like a pivot ready to go. and to actually have to sit there and go like, hey, we're gonna have to kind of like sit on this and think about this a little bit and flesh it out to figure out what we're gonna do next. So yeah, assessing this, I don't know how long that will take or what they're able to find to, best work around it or work through it, but they'll be fine. That's the good news for them, is they'll be fine in the long run. But yeah, there might be a little bit of a hit to some of those donations because people aren't going to want to pay the taxes on them all of a sudden. And it was a fun little thing to have for folks to pour their money into and get back on the other end, in a roundabout way. But we all kind of figured this was going to happen at some point. But yeah, it's interesting to see that openly acknowledged and for them to, not just be able to move forward right away.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that I wonder how many people went into the collective and then the person is like, and it's all tax deductible. It didn't go, well, for how long? Mm-hmm. Because that's my question. Be like, all right, well, fine, but for how long? Now, granted, I've never had the kind of money where anybody would come to me and say, hey, can you help us get this 5-star wide receiver? But most of the people that I hope do would ask those questions. But yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing that came down yesterday. And
this does have to do though with the Texas law. Like that's but I mean, mostly it's like that people aren't going to want to pay as much because of the taxes. But as far as it being affected, it was affected by the law in Texas and the kind of confusion over the NCAA rules and what those dictate versus the state law in Texas, for example.
Chris Del Conte's letter is also kind of ambiguous as to what Texas plans to do.
Yes,
as far as that goes, where he said,
that's why I bring up Mac Rhodes, because that's what we're just going to go by Texas laws. We just assumed A&M would say, screw that, we're going to do what we want to. Or Mac Rhodes said, we're going to go by NCAA laws, whereas you just figured Texas and Texas A&M would just be like, screw the NCAA. We're going to roll these plans out. We're going to go by Texas law. That's what matters. That trumps NCAA. Well, I think that kind of says something that even Texas is like, well, that NCAA law makes things a little bit gray, and until we know what's black and what's white, we're going to sit here and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I do think it's just a way of them putting off the inevitable. Like they're trying to find out how they can do it and not get flack.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
That's what they're trying to do. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I think they'll probably be full steam ahead, but. In the grand scheme of things. Now, one of the other, maybe the biggest story in sports overall today is not even on the field. It's in sports media, where a ton of big-name personalities from ESPN have been let go in their latest round of layoffs. And ESPN as a company is in the struggles right now. Everyone's there's not a company out there that's like, hey, everything's going exactly as we planned. Everybody's adjusting. Disney and ESPN are no different. But a lot of the money now going to pay their main personalities, which are Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee and Mike Greenberg. Those are the big three for them right now. Those would be the three highest paid people at ESPN. And let's see who's on the list, Craig. Matt Hasselbeck, Steve Young, Keyshawn Johnson, Jalen Rose, Susie Colbert, Todd McShay. 20 people overall.
Yeah, I didn't have a list in front of me. Ashley Brewer, who was the late night Sports Center host quite often when I tuned in, and I think she's married to Frank Kaminsky. I think so. The former Wisconsin star. I believe that's right. But yeah, she was part of it as well. And also just saw David Pollock off of College Game Day now because he's been let go. So that's interesting, an interesting addition. But yeah, man, I mean, there was the expectation that these were, or really, it was known that these were coming. And this is not the first or the second or even the third round of cuts.
Neil Everett essentially was in this because he turned down a pay cut a couple weeks ago.
They've been happening pretty regularly at different intervals, but. Yeah, I mean, Susie Colbert, that's a long time.
27 years.
She was there at ESPN, so that's an institution that'll be leaving. There's several people that I think probably aren't known at all, really, or to a far lesser extent. But there's some names in there. I mean, the Max Kellerman and the Jay Williams. Is Jay Williams on that list? Did you just say him?
Keyshawn is.
Okay, well, Keyshawn and Max – is Max Kellerman on that list?
Yeah, Max Kellerman.
Max Kellerman and Keyshawn were on a radio show in the mornings.
Jay's gone too. Yeah.
Who?
Jay is gone.
Jay Will's gone? Okay, so all three of those guys, that was kind of predicted because first of all, ESPN Radio has basically thrown up their hands on the national radio side of things. I mean,
Jason Fitz, one of those guys, guy.
ESPN Radio is a shell of what it was nationally, and that's just a sad truth, but it's true. And they had a problem with that morning show with and really, I mean, replacing Mike and Mike, like that was an institution for so long for them, and they've kind of just not been able to, like, they've just thrown people together. It's just like, hey, here's a guy, and here's a guy, and here's a girl, and let's just give them a show. And it'll be Jay, Pete, and Chuck in the mornings. And, like, but you got to have some chemistry. You got to have some substance to it. And I think they just threw 3 people together who have names, and Kellerman and Jay Will and Keyshawn, and they're like, this will work. And then it didn't work. And it was pretty clear the writing was on the wall for that show. I didn't know that meant that they would all get let go, but
even before that, I mean, it was Zubin Mahente before Max, so
and then
it was
he got
disaster.
Sick. Yeah, he got sick pretty early on. I think like diabetes or something like that. Yeah, and then he had to step away. And then you're right. It was kind of doomed from the start. But it clearly wasn't working, and I didn't know that meant they were going to move on entirely from those guys. Like, I was surprised to see Jalen Rose on here. I just figured he's kind of an institution for their NBA coverage. But, that morning show wasn't surprising. Maybe that all 3 got fully let go. But it's really just a shame. I mean, the business got bloated and fat and happy there for a while, and now it's cutting time, and they're looking to save money everywhere they can. And so, a lot of big names or a lot of familiar names and some totally unexpected that are interesting to see and kind of sad to see as well. I saw Scott Van Pelt was doing an interview with, who was it? Maybe like Jimmy Traina or something from SI, and he asked him if he would still be doing SportsCenter in 3 years, and he's like, no chance. Like, no chance. And it wasn't because of ESPN cuts and all that, but I assume like that age for one. He's been doing that for so long now. Like, you just want to do something different too. But I think he also looks around and sees like there's like 200 less people here than when I started this show, and that's got to be weighing, I think, on everybody up there's mind as well, and just sports media or media in general. So interesting times for sure.
Yeah, and look, the times do change. LaFonso Ellis, friend of the show,
had him on before.
Had him on a lot of times. Let go. Today as one of it. Like it seems like everything kind of mirrors each other. NFL Countdown, NBA guys. Van Gundy is one of the most popular NBA game analysts and really good. And they have a really
or hated. I mean, it depends on who you ask.
I enjoy that everything that they do when I'm watching the finals. I think that's a good trio there with Mark Jackson and Mike Breen's one of the best play-by-play guys there is. But Jeff Van Gundy's out, and I don't think. Almost all of this, none of it's really about talent or getting better people in. It's about getting cheaper people in. I mean, for example, I'll just give you Keyshawn Johnson and Jalen Rose as an example. There are younger players that have not been in media as long that will cost them less money that they can come in and do similar jobs in whatever the new ESPN looks like. So because guys are retiring all the time and they're new to media all the time, they can move people along. And I'm sure this is not the end because this doesn't seem to stop. But there are Jason Fitz, by the way, who's if you don't listen to ESPN Radio, he's essentially been their nighttime guy or evening guy for a very long time through several different radio show incantations. And so incantations are that's not the right word, but incarnations of that show. But there's so many things, and it's a bummer. But most of them will probably land on their feet. I don't think Steve Young needs the job.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are former athletes who probably made enough money to be fine. I don't know. Don't know any of them personally. I enjoyed some of them, and I hate anybody losing their jobs when it's just, cost cutting or things of that nature. But it's got to trim down the machine to be able to pay, it really is kind of a mirror. It's going to turn into a mirror of our country in many ways. Yeah, where you've got like 5 people who are making gobs and gobs of money and then a big drop off, and then probably a lot of other people who are making, whatever they're making, because it does seem like a lot of probably the middle class or upper middle class of maybe some of the gigs here were carved out and done away with. So hate it, like I said, for the people involved, but we'll see how they do with McAfee once that launches, and then I'm sure there'll still be plenty of Stephen A. and all that kind of stuff too. So they'll have content. It's just it's a lot more of a trimmed-down version than what they've had.
Max Kellerman, by the way, was making in the neighborhood of $5 million a year, and Keyshawn Johnson was in the second year of a 5-year deal was around $18 million.
So I think you can make a pretty strong case with it. Maybe that wasn't worth $10 million for those two. Yeah, I mean, that's understandable from the ESPN point of view.
Yeah, I mean, look, and so Keyshawn Johnson, Jalen Rose probably making about the same. You would think maybe Rose been there a little bit longer.
Rose probably makes more than that.
Maybe more than that. So you've got people who've been there a long time, which means that they've got probably raise. You're going to try to find somebody younger and different. When we come back, we focus on BYU with Jake Hatch. This is 365 Sports.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they can focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
It's pretty amazing, the growth of the business. TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tylerman White House. Aaron Duvall, the owner, and we're talking to Samantha. To just be a part of this company and watch it grow, how impressed have you been in just these recent months or in the last year or so?
It's actually been pretty awesome watching us grow the last year. We started this company almost 6 years ago, and just by word of mouth, it has blown up our last year. We're now shipping to all the lower 48 states. We ship Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We also do local deliveries in our area within a 20-mile radius, and we're a part of our farmers market every Saturday here.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Booze
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Jake Hatch, friend of the show, the Zone Sports Network in Salt Lake, plus Locked On Cougars podcast. And Jake, I saw a tweet from Hans Olsen today where he said that this was maybe the biggest day coming up in BYU athletics history. Do you echo that sentiment?
I would say it'd be hard-pressed to find a better one, honestly, because BYU's been waiting for this, honestly, for decades. Obviously, the last 12 years as an independent, they went independent with the whole goal of making it to the Power 5 level. So, yeah, it's years, decades in the making, so I'd have a hard time finding a better date, honestly, in BYU history, maybe outside that 1984 national title.
So, Jake, what's kind of been the reception that the vibes that you get from the fandom out there? I mean, clearly there's been some excitement. You just talked about it some yourself, but just what's sort of the general feel now that we're drawing closer? And, of course, this weekend it all does become official.
I think the biggest thing for BYU fans, it's finally official, and that's the thing about this. It's been the better part of 2 years since they accepted that announcement on September 10th of 2021, and BYU's done a lot of good work in that time to get themselves ready to make this transition, but I just think that there's a sense of finality finally, just knowing, hey, tomorrow it's formally, officially official. BYU will officially have that Power 5 label next to their name, and I know the BYU fans are super excited to be able to say that they're part of the Big 12 officially.
Jake, we had Tom Holmoe on the other day, and it was just a fascinating and great interview. We've had him on a couple of times, but when I asked him about how much longer they were prepared to go independent, he was like, not much. I mean, like they had a window and it opened up for them. But do you think had they had to maybe go through this for 5-6 more years, the fan base maybe would have gotten a little beat down by it?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you would have pushed it, probably another decade, so you're pushing like 20 years at that point, I think the fan base might have just gotten fed up with the situation independence provided. But the nice part is BYU fans stuck with the Cougars through it all, despite the ups and downs of independence. They had that 4-9 season at one point. They also had the 2020 season when they came agonizingly so close to the New Year's Six Bowls that they possibly could have made that year had they beaten that Coastal Carolina team. So they went up and down with the Cougars, but I think they're very happy to be where they're at today. But yeah, I think there was a shelf life that independence probably had.
What's the feel about what Satake has done this offseason? Obviously, the change at defensive coordinator that happened quickly after last year. You have Keaton Slovis rolling into town. Just what's sort of the general vibe? Because I know the last couple of years when Baylor's played them, we've looked a little bit closer, and then obviously this Big 12 part of it as well. But, losing Jaron Hall is a big deal. Losing Apuka Nakua is a big deal. Having the changeover on defense after so many years is going to be different. So is it an exciting, kind of refreshing time, or is it maybe a little bit of what's this exactly going to look like?
Well, I think there's probably a mixture of both. I would kind of go more to the side of it. There's an excitement factor to all of this. BYU went to the transfer portal heavily during this past offseason. They brought in 20 guys via the transfer portal. You already mentioned guys like Keaton Slovis. They're projected starting running back, and Aiden Robbins came in via the transfer portal. So they've had a number of high-level players they feel like are going to be key parts of their debut here in the Big 12. But at the same time, I think that they have enjoyed Jay Hill coming in as the new defensive coordinator. The defense last year was frankly atrocious. I don't know any other word to say it. It dipped so heavily the last 2 years in particular, and Kalani Satake saw a fit to make the change. And the thing about Jay Hill is he's got this infectious energy about him, whether he's talking with a fan or he's talking with a recruit. He's got the ability to make them feel like they're the most important person in the room. So he has come in and absolutely tried to work his magic. Do I expect the defense to make an overnight transition to being a top 40 defense? No, I don't think that you can necessarily count on that, especially with the level of competition BYU is going to face. But I think the changes have been well received by BYU fans, and I think that Kalani Sitake has made the moves he needed to make as BYU makes this transition to the Power 5 level.
Jake, how do you feel that everything lines up for them? Depth, schedule, new arrivals like you just talked about, for them to have a reasonably good run in year one of conference play?
I think it's all dependent on what your expectation level is, because I think that if BYU were to get to a bowl game this year, so they grind out a 6-6 record year one in the Big 12, I would consider that a pretty resounding success, especially considering this is the first time BYU have played a Power 5 schedule. The most Power 5 games they played during their independent era was a 7-game Power 5 schedule, so they're playing at minimum 3 more this year as they join the Big 12 conference. So that's absolutely going to test their depth and their ability to compete on a game-in and game-out basis. So I think the success factor is all kind of dependent on the person. But if you're looking from my perspective, I think if BYU can debut in the Big 12, go 6-6, maybe push it to 7-5, you get to a bowl game, I think you will have made a pretty good debut, and you would have been a fairly competitive team in Big 12 play, which is, I think, what BYU fans want. They want to see a team that can go out there and at least at minimum compete year one.
Jake, how do you feel like the university is set up just in terms of having all the accoutrements, the facilities, the things of that nature? Yeah. What kind of a rise maybe have you seen in that regard since everything, I guess the ball kind of got rolling?
They have done a very good job, I feel like, across the board in trying to upgrade both in personnel and obviously facility upgrades that need to happen are probably still going to be ongoing. I would imagine at some point you'll see facelifts for stuff like the LaVell Edwards Stadium where the football team plays, and that type of stuff will be coming. But they understand that they're coming in to their ship has come in financially. BYU made a fair amount of money as an independent. There were reports they made anywhere between $7 and $10 million annually with that deal with ESPN that they had, but they're going into the Big 12 the first 2 years, even with a partial share. The estimation is $18 million. That's almost double, if not more than that, of what BYU's ever received in a payout from the Big 12. And then obviously with the new contract that was announced that has officially been executed by the Big 12, the estimations are $30+ million, and then obviously that's just the TV revenue. So there is a lot of money coming BYU's way, and I can assume that over the next few years and beyond, you'll start to see BYU utilize that money, reinvest it into their programs, the facilities these teams utilize, and you'll see an upgrade. But leading up to this, they've done a very good job, in particular in terms of adding personnel and off the field and on field goals that they feel like are needed to compete in the Big 12. I think the actual physical facilities, that's probably going to be coming over the next 5 to 10 years.
Jake, which road game, I mean, and look, I know this for BYU fans is kind of a silly thing based on when we saw them here 2 years ago, but which road game do you think will be the one that they do come out in the most force, even knowing that they travel well everywhere in the country?
I would say I think it's going to be the Texas game. I know the BYU's played at Texas twice in Independence. I actually made the trip for both of those games, and one of them was Taysom Hill running all over Texas down there in Austin. And I think the BYU fans will make that trip, considering it'll be the only time that they'll do it as a member of the Big 12 Conference. The other one I think is going to be a really, really big game, even though the opponent isn't necessarily that big of a name, is BYU's first Big 12 game. It's at Kansas. And I know that Kansas had a really nice rebound year last year after being down for the better part of a decade. I just think with the historical factor of BYU opening Big 12 play on the road in Lawrence, I can expect that, and probably that Texas game will probably be the most heavily attended by BYU fans. But as you said, Cougar fans will show up to almost any one of these games.
What's your prevailing memory? I mean, I'm not a BYU fan in any way, and I'm definitely not a Texas fan, but I remember that game like it was yesterday and what he did and the upset and all of that. What's your prevailing memory from seeing him take down the horns?
Honestly, it's just that hurdle. I was there watching, and when he jumped over that, I don't remember what the safety was. He jumped over. My mouth like hit the floor. I was like, "What in the world did he just do?" It was just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but honestly, that's the most magical thing I've seen from his pretty legendary career. Some of the plays that Taysom Hill made, but that hurdle alone, it's an iconic moment that still gets played back all these years later by BYU.
Which one do you like more, the win over Texas or the win over Oklahoma?
See, for me, I think that the win over Oklahoma was more unexpected than the wins over Texas were, honestly, because Oklahoma was number 3 going into that season. They were playing at AT&T Stadium, the first game in that new stadium. So that one was just so stunning to me because I didn't necessarily think BYU had much of a chance going in. So I'd say the Oklahoma win would be the biggest one.
Jake Hatch, KSL Sports Zone there in Salt Lake City. And, of course, Locked On Cougars, a very frequent guest of the show and one of our favorites to always have.
Jake, any chance you can announce a Pac-12 TV deal before you go?
The best line I think this week I've heard about it came from Matt Bryant. I'm not even sure God's angels in heaven know when that deal is going to actually put down the pipe. So I will acquiesce and say that I have no idea, but maybe at some point we'll actually hear something.
Jake Hatch, thank you so much. Happy 4th of July, and will we see you at Big 12 Media Days?
Same to you guys, and yes, you will see me down there. I will be there in we're like 10 days away now.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right, Jake, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
It's Jake Hatch. Yeah, it's going to be. There were a couple years ago where I remember thinking like AT&T Stadium was a little too big for what we were doing, but now with 4 extra teams, I'm glad we have the room.
Yeah, I do think that's something they probably need to look back at after this year with Oklahoma and Texas gone, because Oklahoma and Texas, like even for as big of schools they are, they still have probably more media than they need, if that makes sense. And I don't know, maybe it's the case everywhere, because you could argue like Baylor, its size probably has more media than it needs. I don't know, but
it does not. We have plenty. We have the correct amount now.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fine, but there's more of an Army feel when you see like the Oklahoma media contingent and like the Texas media contingent. It's just like, how's there that many people? But that will take away from what the normal kind of room situation is. To what degree, I don't know, and that will be interesting. So I do think that is something they probably need to look into and think, do we need this giant stadium? And it's cool because it's one of the greatest stadiums in the entire world, and it's a cool backdrop. But,
when they had it the Star, it was just as effective.
But right, yeah, and it was probably even better, actually, in terms of all that's around that now.
Yeah.
The Star might actually be a better idea. And they did that, and I don't know why they pivoted back, honestly. Was it like a scheduling thing? Well, no, because you would have booked AT&T before you would have booked the Star.
I think it was the championship. When they brought the championship back, they're like, we're gonna start the year here, we're gonna end the year here.
Right. That makes sense. That's marketing makes sense.
The synergy of it, but I still think it's probably more cost-effective for a smaller building, just in my opinion. But
they've got Texas Live all up and running, the last couple years to where it's like at full capacity now. So there's that where there wasn't before, where it was just kind of stadiums and then little bars and restaurants kind of scattered at Six Flags. But, now there is Texas Live, so that definitely adds some element to it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something you at least look at and go, could we downsize and be fine because we're not going to have as many people, or will there be about the same when all is said and done with the 4 new schools? I don't know that because I don't know these. Like, I know BYU's got a good number of people. We know that, since the UCF, Houston all have got, the number of normal people that we talk to. But, I don't know about that.
I can, just for Texas alone, I can remember – and Tom was what wound up being Tom Herman's last year at Texas, or at least because we didn't have a media day. So, yeah, I guess it was the last time we had a media day because we didn't have that one of COVID. But so his second to last year at Texas, he was a good 40 minutes late for his breakout session with the media, and then berated them for asking where he was.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. It's really, like, I got to tell you got balls of steel when you can be 40 minutes late and blame the people who are waiting on you. That is a special kind of ego right there.
Sounds like the one that got him partially not in that seat for much longer. I don't know.
Exactly. So anyway, but there were so many people around there, and it did occur to me, like, this is the guy in this room, this is the one who is going to have the most people around him the longest. Because if you look at like he and then of course Lincoln Riley would have been over there. Those two guys would have had that. But even Lincoln Riley, because Oklahoma's doing so well, people kind of move on to the players after they get Lincoln, you know. But Tom Herman, the Austin media will have your job is to sit here with Tom Herman until he's done talking. No matter who asks him a question, we're recording it, we're notating it, it's going somewhere, as opposed to everybody else in the Big 12. Like, you know, if you cover Baylor or West Virginia or whoever, you go up, you get, you know, the time that you need, and you kind of move on. And if somebody else has something you don't get, you can get it later, and it's not really a tragedy. But for the University of Texas, because it's such a big deal for the Austin media, like it's kind of like how everything is with the Cowboys. I mean, Mike McCarthy says something, and, you know, John Machota and Hellman and Chill and all these guys have to leave what they're doing and go to Mike McCarthy, you know, cutting the ribbon at a children's hospital. It's the same way in Austin. And so they had to sit there and listen to everything he said, which started out with a lecture about why it was their fault he was late or something like that. I don't know, who knows. But but yeah, it was a lot of people. I mean, it's a lot of people that were just there for that, for him, you know. And you could probably pop in about 3 or 4 national writers that were sitting there, but the rest of them were all University of Texas media people, to a man or a woman, to a person, all the way down the line. All right, we'll take a break right here. When we come back, recap some of the kind of goings on in the San Diego State news and the Pac-12 media news, and then at 5:35, Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Times-Union tells us what this means for San Diego State going forward. This is 365 Sports.
It's time for the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. And just like the weather, the deals couldn't be hotter. Save big on Ram trucks. Now offering 10% off MSRP and a new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab. That's right. Or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends. Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? by not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference, and that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
I don't know what I was thinking with this music bed here. It's got a nice
little vibe to it.
A little vibe. It's got a little bit of a morning news vibe to it, honestly, now that I listen to it fully as it trails out. So, I feel like I should be talking to Craig, be like, hey, Craig, Chef Dave is going to be in here later on making his famous jalapeno poppers. And you'll be like, and then later on, we're going to check traffic with Judy.
Yeah. That's not a show I would ever be a part of.
No.
I don't have the energy for that, for that kind of personality at all times. But kudos to those who do.
Yeah. I do admire a lot of the morning news people who have to pivot, especially on days with serious news from where they've got somebody bringing in all of their trained poodles to today tragedy in the Midwest.
Well, the morning of 9/11, when you're sitting there, there's actually clips if you go back. There's one I saw where it was I think the timing of this was right. It was Air Jordan is cleared for takeoff. It's the morning of 9/11 because he was coming back to play basketball.
Yeah.
And just it lined up timing wise to where that was the story of the morning, and then all of a sudden totally flipped switches so you got to be ready to pivot, but you got to have that big personality ready to go from second one in the mornings, and I'm just not built for that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm not built for that.
Yeah. I don't think I could do, news to weather to a C-list actor is in town doing a play, and here he is. Let's talk to him. It would. I don't know if it's something I could fake for very long, but lots of kind of like a smattering of stories kind of all came out at once that are all related, but not completely directly. Well, San Diego State for sure directly related. One, San Diego State is going to stay in the Mountain West, and that is because the Pac-12 in their board meeting said that they have a general framework on an accelerated media talks deal that they hope to have done by media days. So San Diego State is not going to have any place to go, so they've reaffirmed their commitment to the Mountain West. And we'll have a guest, Mark Ziegler, on that here in a second. And then the Big 12 signed their fully signed, executed their big media deal. So that's happened. I mean, we knew that was coming, but kind of strange it was today of all days that it happened.
Almost seems like they're maybe even holding on to that for the right moment. And if not, it just worked out perfectly timing wise. But if so, then thanks, Endeavor. Great marketing. But yeah, they released a graphic, and the Big 12 deal is officially signed. There was never a doubt that it would be. It's just a matter of when they at first announced it and then actually got to this point today, there were, T's to cross and I's to dot and things like that. But, I mean, the general gist of the deal was never in doubt. So just worked out that way to where San Diego State's having to, not for the first time either in their history, but turn around and go that part about us leaving, something happened, something came up and we're back. Can we work this out? They're having to do that now as of today because they are not going to be entering the Pac-12, at least it appears, anytime soon. And there is no Pac-12 TV deal that is completed. There were some things presented to officials, but nothing in the way of an actual deal being ready to go here in the near future either. So that continues on. And meanwhile, the Big 12, officially announced their TV deal is completely finalized. So a lot of things going on, but all kind of in the same realm together. And it just still begs a lot of some of the same questions as far as the Pac-12 goes, and even raises some new ones of, San Diego State and what their future looks like beyond this week as they now realize that move that looked like it was probably bound to happen is not happening, at least for a little while longer. Very interesting flurry of headlines coming out of the realignment saga that has been ongoing for a while now.
Yeah, and if San Diego State wanted to be in the Pac-12, I think they thought that they might have been able to get that done this year, or they were attempting to when they sent that letter to the conference. But now, obviously, they're going to stay in and wait it out. So it means that
we see why they were looking for an extension, because they probably found out that this was not going to be done by July 1st, and they were going to have to pay that money. And so they're like, hey, can we get like another month on this thing? And you know what? Maybe another month is what it takes. But look, I'm not going to speculate on that anymore because we've been saying that for months. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's next month. And, a whole year's gone by doing that. So, yeah, maybe it's next month, and maybe that would have worked out that way. But at the same time, if they were that close, then I think something could have been worked out to where San Diego State's not turning back around to the Mountain West going, hey, guys, there's a little thing that the other day. But so clearly that's not going to happen for them, and that's a bummer for the San Diego State fans, because I know some of them had to have probably already started having bought their Pac-12 merchandise or whatever, or started to envision what the schedule is going to look like, because it did seem like it was on the cusp of happening, but not so fast.
Yeah, you asked during the break, you wondered what Brett Yormark thought about San Diego State. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how far down the list they would be. Obviously, P5 schools are the top of the list. And like he said in the interview with BYU TV the other day, he personally likes the number at 14, and it's about fit and what that means. So I think a lot of people can assume that's Colorado and Arizona, although Colorado and Arizona are a lot different than the 4 schools they've added. In fact, you could say San Diego State's a lot more like the schools that they've added than Colorado and Arizona are.
I mean, as far as being G5s historically and, some of the geography, I think so. I think, he also made mention in that same interview that it was just a reminder for the 100th time that it needs to be additive. So I don't think San Diego State on their lonesome adds to the Big 12 and raises everybody's money pot. As a combination of other schools, as a whole West Coast contingent, so to speak, or Mountain Time Zone, Western Coast, time zone, Pacific Time Zone kind of contingent, BYU, Arizona, Colorado, San Diego State, that sounds like it would be cool on paper. I don't know how that would jive logistically or financially, but, I think that's something you've at least kicked the tires on, and certainly as of today, maybe you re-engage with kicking the tires on that and just go like, so are we sure like how that would, like what this would look like and go from there. But yeah, it does seem like there's a bit of a crack in the door, so to speak. If that was, enticing enough, they could pursue that and really cut the pack off at the knees by doing that, you would think. But without all of the details, maybe it's not prudent to do that. Maybe it wouldn't be worth cutting off the pack. Maybe it wouldn't cause, the conference to fizzle out, and that you could take advantage of that. But Brett Yormark's a calculated guy. I'm sure they've already, rifled through all of the different options out there. But, yeah, San Diego State's, I guess they're not in search of a home. They have a home, but they thought they were getting a new home, and now they're not, at least for a couple of years, it would appear, out west at least.
Yeah, I think that, this is – it's just really unfortunate news for what maybe they had hoped that they could be in just one season's time, because part of the thing is, look, it's advantageous if you're a team joining the Pac-12 to not have to sit through a year or two like the Big 12 teams did, right? So San Diego State, they have to sit through this year, but they only have to sit through 1 year, and if the TV deal is done and you're expanded and you can join in 25-26, which is what they're, or 24-25, now at the earliest they can join is 25-26, because they're going to have to play that 2024 and 2025 season through in the Mountain West Conference. So because this year is now, they were already going to be the Mountain West this year. Now they're going to be in the Mountain West the year after that, because they can't leave the conference now, and that's another time you do have to wait and wonder if it will even happen. And I guess it could happen in the middle of this some way. Like the Pac-12 gets a TV deal, they extend an offer to San Diego State. San Diego State, informs them they're leaving on the day where they can pay half the money and move on. But even still, that's still a couple years out from happening at this point.
Yeah, I think we established, like they're kind of in a place where they didn't think they would probably be at this point in time. They probably thought that they'd be, packing up the bags to take those like weekend trips to Eugene and Corvallis and Pullman and all those places and be, the new south of L.A., Southern California representative. But, again, not happening. It's not happening today. It's not happening this season or next season. And beyond that, that's a question mark. That's all we know, though, and it's realignment, so any number of crazy things could happen. But I do think that's something the Big 12's obviously looked into. I don't know if this makes them look into it again or if it even would be worthwhile. But for San Diego State, the wait will continue to become a Power 5 school. And then, SMU appears that would be the same case for them. Tulane, anybody else that's been mentioned at times as a potential candidate. That's fluctuated based on what the rumor of the day is as far as the TV negotiations and who would be additive and not when it comes to the Pac-12. But those are some of the same ones that were rumored for the Big 12 previous to all this. All those schools, Boise State, the wait will continue. And for some of them, they're going to be waiting for a long time. But at least a couple thought that wait might be over. And no, that's not the case just yet. So we'll hear more from our guy here in a few minutes on the San Diego State side of things.
Yeah. By the way, in the chat room, Paxton keeps asking me to give my Big 12 poll, which I thought we did the other day. Smokey just gave his. We gave our opinion. Look, I'll tell you, Paxton, I think Texas is first. I think they'll probably be first in the league. I don't think they're going to be a CFP contender because I just, knowing how their seasons have gone, that they'll lose a couple games that will knock them out of that. But I think if this is not the year that they can win the Big 12, I don't know what is.
We went school by school almost, and look, it's still fluid because there will be other things to learn here over the next few weeks, and I don't have like what I would consider a finalized version of what I expect. I do have Texas on top, though, and I think that if they don't at least appear in the Big 12 title game, this year's got to be chalked up to being a disappointment. I don't understand how you can slice it any other way with their roster, with their schedule. There's really no excuses for it. Barring like Quinn Ewers getting hurt, and even then, you've got all these quarterbacks you've been recruiting, so that's not an excuse either when you've got a quarterback guru as head coach. So, yeah, if they're not in that Big 12 title game, then I think something really crazy had to have happened, and that would be a bummer for UT fans. But they're my clear number one, and then beyond that, we can argue over 2 through 14 or maybe 2 through 12. Sorry, West Virginia, and that one I have kind of in the bottom couple of spots, if not last. Beyond that, though, I think you could make an argument for a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different finishes for schools. But the top and the bottom seem like they're pretty clear-cut favorites for those spots.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in week 2 with them in Alabama, which has nothing to do with the Big 12.
Nothing to do with the Big 12.
But that's down the line if they're a legit CFP contender to me. But you're right. Look, they in the conference to me have outwardly look the Red River game, that one is a toss up no matter who's doing what because of the atmosphere and how it goes. There are years where I thought Texas was just an absolute pile of dog poo and they beat Oklahoma bad, and then there were years where Oklahoma was struggling to find their way and did the same thing. So that one, but Kansas State, TCU, and Texas Tech are 3 of their last 4 games, and that will be where they separate themselves to me, is at the end of the season. Because the beginning of the season, here in Waco, that could be a tough one. But it also could be a win for that. We don't know. We know less about Baylor than I think I know less about them going in than I possibly ever have going into a year.
I know as much as ever, but I don't know if it's going to make them a good team or not. We know enough about them, but are they going to be any good? I don't know that just yet. On paper, they should be better. They've done everything imaginable to be better than last year, but does that actually equal being better? I don't know.
But as far as just the starting offense alone, there's 3 guys I've seen play all that much, and. And that's not starting out I'm not talking about the starting 11. I'm talking about the first 16 guys you're probably going to use on offense. We've seen 3 of them play pretty regularly, maybe 4 if you count Richardson, who's transferred in, but he was at another school. So again, there's a lot. The offensive line is all new, all completely new. for Baylor. So it's tough to say. Kansas has been a bugaboo for Texas, and Daniels is back. But, I don't know. Can they get in front of Texas enough to slow them down and stop them on the road? That's early on. And then that game at Houston should be interesting. But I think that, it's been kind of clear to most that Houston's in a roster transition right now that Texas is not. So if they don't win that game at Houston, then I don't know if this is one of those, there goes the Texas is back talk, week 7 or 8 right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can go through, but bottom line is they should be in the conference championship game like we said from the very beginning. I mean, I don't care who's in week 4, all due respect. But yeah, every matchup that you want to list off, they're going to be favored in. Pretty much every other than Alabama, and maybe when we get into week 8, there's injuries and something funky's going on, and TCU's favored or something, by a slim margin. But for the most part, I feel pretty confident in saying that outside of Alabama, they will likely be favored in every single game, no matter where it is, no matter who it's against. So that's all you need to know. And so that's why I say, no matter what, barring just something crazy, they should be in the Big 12 title game. Period. Yeah. Point blank. End of story. And if they're not, then that will be a story in of itself.
Yeah, this is the year. Even if realignment wasn't a thing, this would have been the year they've been building to that whole time. If this was not, if that was all out of it, not building towards an SEC team, this is what they've been building. This is the roster that they maybe finally have that, at least to me on the surface, looks like they did a little bit more work on it than there's more detail to it. I think what Texas in trouble under Mac Brown and probably under Charlie Strong as well was they lived off their name a lot, and they were just going, okay, 4-star, 5-star, 4-star, 5-star, but do you fit the system? Do you fit what's going on? That's the reason that teams that are successful is not only do you get 4s and 5 stars, but they fit what you're trying to do, or you adapt what you do to them. And Texas was not very good at doing that, and they weren't very good at developing talent. So even the guys they got that were 3 stars before Texas got involved and bumped that up a star, they're just not very good at developing talent. And it appears that, especially if you look at this year's NFL draft, there's more Longhorns that have been in it than any of the previous several altogether, that they are starting to develop NFL players, and they're starting to develop guys who can win games regularly on the Big 12 and the Power 5 level, which was not the case a couple years ago. So we'll see. But again, it's been a long time for Texas, and everybody has expectations all the time. We'll see. But yeah, if they're not favored in any game except Alabama, then something's gone terribly wrong down the line for them. Bottom line. They'll be favored against Oklahoma. They'll be favored against everyone they play but Alabama, because that game is week 2 and it's in Tuscaloosa. So nothing will have changed for either team by the time that happens. So we'll take a break right here. We'll come back. If Mark Ziegler's not completely ready, Garrett, don't worry about it. He'll be ready at 3:35 his time, 5:35 our time. But we'll get Mark Ziegler, San Diego Times Union Tribune, to talk about San Diego State and what today means for them in the bad news on expansion for the Aztecs. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Mark Ziegler, San Diego Union Tribune, and Mark joins us, and I know that doing the hardest thing you have to do when living in California, navigating the traffic, but we certainly appreciate it. Mark, what is there a good news, bad news scenario today for San Diego State on staying in the Mountain West, or how has the fan base taken the news of expansion for them is not happening yet?
Well, I think they're taking it wrong. I think everyone's jumping to conclusions that, San Diego State is never leaving the Mountain West. I just think San Diego State was in a situation where they couldn't leave. I mean, what are they going to do? They have nowhere to go. There's no assurances. And this deadline was upon them. And I think they feel like they just had to wait and wait it out, and figure it out later. And I don't think anything is permanent. And I think this today was just, let's stay in the Mountain West. We're going to get our $6 million distribution check next week instead of having it withheld if we said we were going. And we'll take that money, and then we'll decide what we're going to do next.
Mark, did you think that there was – I mean, obviously there was the money part of the deadline, but did you get the feeling that, perhaps today or here in the next couple of days, obviously weekend's going to be tough with news, but that something was imminent, or did it feel like this was as much of a real possibility as the alternative would be them staying in the Mountain West for a couple more years?
I think that there were two kind of options today. One was to do nothing. And we kind of wrote a story about that in today's paper saying, look, if we think you should just do nothing, because there's so much confusion going back and forth between the two conferences. Between the conference office and President Del Torre at San Diego State. San Diego State was under said they took the position that they were still in the league, and the conference said, no, you're out. And so there was confusion there. They couldn't really sort it out at the conference level for at least another couple of weeks, because the presidents who make up the board are all over the world on vacation. They can't convene them even electronically. And so, the play could have been, hey, let's just wait till the board meets and kind of forces our hand here, and we'll figure it out. the second option, I think, was what they did was just to clarify their position that they're still in the league so they could get a $6 million check when the distribution is cut next week. And the third option was to leave. And I just feel like they looked at what happened today. You know, the Pac-12 presidents met earlier today and were delivered sort of a framework of a deal, but no numbers, no particulars. And maybe something came out of that late meeting. Maybe they were told, look, this isn't looking real good. We might not expand. We can't give you any assurances. You probably should stay put for right now. And maybe they got some information there that led them to that decision and away from the one of just jumping out of the league now.
Mark, do you think that when they decided to send the letter and get the extension, had they discussed anything substantial with the Pac-12 recently at that point, and they were were they just taking a shot in the dark to see what would happen?
That was a shot in the dark, and it should never have been put in print. That was strictly, the deadline's coming up in 2 weeks. We're not going to have any answers from the Pac-12. They didn't have any answers from the Pac-12. They were no closer to leaving. There was nothing that had changed, but they were like, maybe we can get an extension. Maybe they'll talk to us. Maybe they'll negotiate. And I think that the president probably should have just done that through back channels. She put it in writing. And because she put it in writing, now they kind of had to come with a letter today to clarify their position. If she had never written those letters, that first letter, then nothing would have happened today. They just would have remained in the conference.
Do you think, and there are two worlds, right? There's the way things are portrayed and the way things actually are, and you're giving us the way things actually are, which we appreciate. Would you say that for, I guess, people who've been following this that have a vested interest in San Diego State, there's disappointment today, or was everybody kind of mind of like, hey, there's nothing close. This was always the most realistic possibility, at least for right now?
I think it's the first because, look, fans want out of this league, but fans aren't the ones having to balance the athletic department budget. Fans aren't the one having to risk not having anywhere to go. And so the emotional reaction is, let's get out of this conference. We think we're better than it. We want to be in the Pac-12. We want to be in a power conference. And so there's going to be disappointment there. I don't, maybe there'll be a few realistic fans that understand the realities and how the game is played. But nothing's final. They could still leave this summer, still negotiate some sort of settlement. And maybe they've done that. Maybe they've met with the Mountain West and said, look, we're going to stay for now. And if we do get an invitation in a month or 2 months, we'll figure something out. We'll pay $20 million instead of $34 million or something like that. So that could have happened as well. But fans aren't going to take it well. They've been waiting for this for 50 years, and they thought this was going to be the day, and it didn't happen.
Mark, is it Pac-12 or bust in their minds right now, or do they feel like maybe the Big 12 would be an option at some point down the line?
I mean, they certainly would entertain it because they're just basically looking for two things. They're looking for prestige, which the Pac-12 gives them both academically and athletically. So, there's a big academic component to this. They want to be in a conference with Washington, with Berkeley, with Stanford. The academic trajectory of the university has just shot up in the last 10 years, and that's what they feel is a better fit for them, also geographically. But I think, at the end of the day, they're just trying to get to more money so they can grow their athletic department, grow their programs, not have to rely maybe on student fees and, institutional support, which is basically California state taxpayer dollars as much. So, I think it's pretty much Pac-12 or bust. It just doesn't. I don't think it really fits the Big 12. You're sending softball teams to Morgantown, West Virginia, and a tennis team to Orlando, and a volleyball team to Lubbock, Texas. I mean, those places are really hard to get to from San Diego, and they're not going to charter all these smaller sports. And the student athlete experience just would be awful, I think, for pretty much everybody except for maybe football.
So, Mark, just kind of resetting the deck chairs here. They're not going to move. What does this mean in terms of are they looking at a couple more years in the Mountain West? And as best you understand it, kind of, what's to look out for, I guess, moving forward from the whole will they, won't they have an opportunity standpoint?
That's a really good question. I think the best answer for that is they're staying in the Mountain West, ... for now.
Okay.
And people need to understand it. It's for now. They're going to wait and see what happens to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 presidents apparently said we'll get more details by Media Day, which is July 21st, but there might not be any finality by then. So they're just going to have to wait this out. And then they'll have two decisions. If they do get an invitation from the Pac-12, assuming it stays together, assuming they decide to expand, which they may not, you don't know. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, they get an invitation. Now they have a decision. Do we leave the Mountain West with less than a year's notice and face a $34 million exit fee? Or do we tell the Pac-12, look, can you wait for us an extra year? And the Pac-12 says, sure, we can wait an extra year. And they go in 25-26 instead of 24-25. I think those would be the two options if they get an invitation. If the Pac-12 implodes, I mean, no harm, no foul. Then they're very happy that they stayed because they would have had nowhere to go.
Mark, obviously coming off the basketball run that they had this year into the Final Four, and that gets alumni excited. Potential expansion gets alumni donors excited. Has there been an uptick in an effort, more of an effort to make sure that those things are solidified when and if expansion happens?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's been a little disappointing on the NIL front. You'd think that there'd be a lot more interest, a lot more NIL coming to them. And there really hasn't. I mean, the basketball team has landed some players. They've done, the coach has done a tremendous job without a big pot of NIL. They found guys who weren't really that interested in it. But in the bigger picture, it's going to be a very, very costly move to go to the Pac-12 or a power conference because there's a lot of expenses associated. They have to grow the athletic department. They're going to have to build out all this infrastructure for television and streaming that they don't currently have. That's going to be $10 or $15 million. They're going to have to pay higher salaries. So the donors are really going to be, relied on and tapped into. So it's going to be interesting times. But yeah, to answer your question, you would think it would have been a little bit more, and it hasn't.
Is there, now that, look, the Chargers are gone, it's the Padres, and then as far as athletic support, are they fully adopted by the city, you think?
Well, after that NCAA tournament run, I think they really are. They always were before. Basketball, because it's one of the few places where the basketball team is a bigger deal than the football team. And it always has been, ever since Kawhi Leonard and some of the success they've had there, and just the incredible turnaround in that program.
Yeah, I think we lost him. He's in traffic. But that was my last question anyway for Mark. Garrett, if you can just tell him, that thank you. But yeah, so we can wrap that up because that was the last question. But yeah,
do we need to clean it up for the TV version?
Do you want to? Yeah, see if we. The good idea. Thank you, Craig. Teamwork. Yeah, see if we can get him back and we can clean that up for the TV version of this later. But yeah, I mean,
just say we got one question and we'll be done with it if possible.
Yeah. The UTSA example to me of that city has totally adopted that school, because they have the Spurs and they have UTSA. Mm-hmm. Now with San Diego, they have the Padres and San Diego State.
Right.
And they don't have a soccer team there, do they?
I think they might.
Yeah, they have a soccer team there. So that's what they got. So it's not there's not a whole lot of you probably still have a bunch of people that are still Chargers fans, but they're not in your city anymore. So,
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean, though, that you pro sports fans become Aztecs fans, right? But, I mean, it is the one college program that kind of stands out with only one pro team to rival it. So, yeah, that's going to be more of a focus for them than probably ever.
Yeah. Mark joins us again. Mark, just cleaning up that last answer, as far as the city of San Diego adopting the program as their program, you say that basketball's kind of solidified that and that it is with the Chargers gone and people have wrapped their arms around San Diego State.
Yeah, because San Diego doesn't win everything, or anything other than indoor soccer. I mean, won 10 indoor soccer, something like that, 15 indoor soccer titles. But the Chargers left. The Rockets have left. The Clippers were here and left. The Padres have never won a World Series. They're in the tank right now. This is the city's team right now. This is, their identity in many respects. And so what happened in April was just an enormous deal. And that's fueled the desire to get into a power conference. I mean, people kind of feel that's their birthright now.
How uncomfortable are people with the Padres? This is a random question, just given the amount of money they're spending on that roster.
Well, they're happy they're spending it because I think, before they're a small market team. It's a little curious that a small market owner is spending that much. It's been a big deal, I think, behind the scenes with other owners in the league. And I don't think they're too upset that they're losing because they're kind of like, you're ruining it for the rest of us here. But, what changed this year with the Padres is expectation. And it changed when they beat the Dodgers last year. That was the albatross. They can never get past the Dodgers. They beat the Dodgers, and now they have this roster, and everyone just expects them to win a World Series. It doesn't understand how hard it is, what goes into it, the chemistry required. And so people are really starting to turn on them, as they do in San Diego. It's a fair weather fan base, and I think it's getting a little bit ugly now. It'll be interesting to see. They're still coming to games, but it'll be interesting to see the back half of the season if this continues, particularly the way they've played in the last week or two. If it starts to impact attendance, and then that really hurts the bottom line of the club financially, even more than, they're already way underwater, but it hurts them even more.
Mark, thank you so much for hopping on. I know you're a busy day. Enjoy the holiday weekend. We'll hopefully talk to you again soon.
You too. Yeah, thanks a lot for the time. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, Mark Ziegler, San Diego Union Tribune. I'll tell you what, I don't care. And look, this is just me being – Levi's probably like this a little bit too because he's a huge baseball guy. I don't care how bad – if I lived in San Diego, how bad the Padres would be. Levi, have you ever been to that park in San Diego? You can't hear me. He's focused. But, no, that's a great park. It's unbelievable. A bad Padres game is still one of the best days you can have in your life.
Levi's big chance on the show. He's not going to.
Yeah, that's it.
He doesn't even know that he's just missing this opportunity. He's not even looking. He has no idea. This is a big break.
Yeah.
And he's not there. We could play that how long? He has no clue.
No clue.
No, but yeah, I never thought I'd see a day where they could actually make yellow and brown uniforms actually look like kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up and they were wearing those, he's on delay. But I never thought that those were very cool uniforms growing up. I loved it when they changed it, even though it was to very like navy blue and
white,
kind of various versions of that. But you got the cool looking, team and the cool-looking players and the uber talents, and you win, you make lots of stuff look cool. And just fashion comes back around, I guess, because I hated brown and yellow, and they actually pull it off and make it kind of work these days. Yeah. But they have a really talented team. And, yeah, if I was a Padres person, if I was a San Diego native or somebody living there, I would definitely not spend all my time in a stadium or an arena, and I understand that part of living out in Southern California. That's often brought up when it comes to Pac-12 attendance, but I'd find my way to more than a few baseball games for sure in that city if at all possible.
Well, it's right, it's right downtown. You kind of even walk out of some hotels and stumble into left field. It's just right there. It's so cool. I loved it. I've only been there one time, but it was great. I would have, if I could have convinced my two friends, I could have convinced one of them, but not the other one. But I said, why don't we just stay here for the whole weekend and buy tickets for the series? But we went on a Thursday afternoon game where they do old school, they play the organ. Dave Winfield was there that day, doing a thing. So it was cool to see Dave Winfield. Strangely enough, Dr. Oz threw out the first pitch. It was terrible, which you would expect. But yeah, it was just a fun day. And, then you go out and you're in this great, the gas lamp right there in downtown San Diego. There's tons of stuff to do. And you're in San Diego, which is beautiful anyway. And
yeah, that's great for their tourism department. I need to go there for sure. But what do you think about what he said about San Diego State and just sort of where they sit right now?
Yeah, they're in a holding pattern. I did find it interesting that he said that letter was a shot in the dark.
Well, that was clearly a misplay. Yeah. I know we're running low on time, so I wanted to hit on that before we take this final break. What he had to say, and so that was interesting.
I didn't know it was one or the other. I thought this is either a shot in the dark or this is calculated.
Yeah, I give people the benefit of the doubt, man, wrongly, I guess probably more often than rightly, but I do anyways just because I believe in people, which, again, some I'm sure disagree with. But I gave San Diego State the benefit of the doubt that they're a smart enough institution that they had already locked something in, that they were going to go send that letter. And by locked in, I mean, hey, this is our last year in this conference, and we're going to be going to the Pac-12 soon. And I was wrong because that clearly was not the case. They had no backup. They had no assurance. They didn't really have anything other than just, let's throw this out there and see what happens. And it didn't work in their favor. That was a miscalculation for sure. And clearly there have been talks about that to some extent or realizations of that. But that was a dumb move because it created a whole thing that didn't need to be a thing. And now it brought you some attention, but not necessarily all positive attention. Now, look, it's not going to break their chances of ever getting into any other conference, especially not the Pac-12. But it was just – I think it got a lot of people's hopes up, for one, and many of them were your fans. And that was a bad move, I think, on their part, and should have been kept private and not in writing, like he said. You should have made a phone call, and you could have avoided, like, what has it been, like 3 weeks worth of talk about what is or isn't happening. So, too bad there's not a do-over button. You could just push real quick.
Absolutely. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
It's the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, and we've got some major deals on those Hot Wheels. This month, you can get the legendary 2023 Dodge Challenger or Dodge Charger SXT, GT, or RT with total values up to $2,000. That's right, up to $2,000. So you can get that right hot rod for you. Visit today or browse online, AllenSamuelsDCJ.com while supplies last. And the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with $1,500 in total values, or 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $6,000. Get a 2023 Jeep Compass at 10% off MSRP. An incredible inventory of Ram trucks at Allen Samuels, now offering 10% off MSRP. New 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, with Ted Teague, the general manager, and a tremendous staff ready to help you buy that car and that vehicle you want. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they can focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our briskets. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
There are 26 lessons
letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
We'll get to the top 5 questions for the incoming 4 teams to the Big 12 in just a second. But I wanted to run through Super Chats real quick. 3 $5 Super Chats from Nathan Harvey. Gig 'em again, and gig 'em from Nathan Harvey, obviously an Aggie fan, so whoop for you. Katie Rader, 2 365 Super Chats, 1 to me and 1 to you, Craig. It says first shiners on him. So
very nice.
Thank you very much, Katie Rader. By the way, thank you to YouTube for giving us the fan funding tab, which makes this so much easier to find on there. Adam McDonald, finally on the chat today. I was worried about you. Today was the day. But yes, he's actually talking to Smokey, who's obviously done at the golf course. And
Adam, for those who don't know, San Diego State fan. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes. Yeah. Adam says, well, San Diego State end up back in the Mountain West Conference. Well, yes, they've officially done that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen now for at least a year or two, and then, revisit things and see how things sort of fall. But for the time being, yep, they're going to go back and have to probably make an unwanted phone call of like, hey, let's talk, because my other thing fell through. But, they bring money to the conference, so the Mountain West that'll all work itself out. It'll be fine, but it's just kind of an embarrassing thing because you thought one thing and other things, or that thing's not actually going to happen for at least right now. But, yeah, Mountain West for probably a couple years and just kind of see where things sort of fall here over that time.
And a $10 Super Chat from Kyle A. I know some Big 12 fans hate certain Utah fans, but I, for one, would love to join the Big 12. Your commissioner just seems so much better than ours. I'd also love to play new schools and get new rivals. So that sounds great. Also, another one from Katie Rader, this one to Smokey. So thank you for all the Super Chats.
Yeah, wow. To everybody who chimed in on the Super Chat side of things, definitely appreciate you. And who's the Ute fan that you just mentioned?
Kyle A.
Well, Kyle, what's up, man? Looking forward to seeing Baylor and Utah play here in, I guess, a few weeks from now. That'll be a fun little home and home, and a tough one for Baylor. I know people are looking forward to that game, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely, it's like any other fan base. There's that element that probably gets the most attention. That's not always the best portrayal of everybody, and Utah certainly has some, like everybody else does. But yeah, I mean, I think people realize that not everybody thinks that way, and there are some fans that would like the Big 12 change of scenery, but they're in a good spot for them right now. It was a long time to get to the Pac, and I hope it works out best for them as it possibly can.
Well, like every soccer team has hooligans. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
How it goes. All right, top 5 questions for the incoming 4 teams to the Big 12 as we sit on their last night of not being in the Big 12. They've got 6 more hours Central Time. Number 4, this is a blanket. Number 5, a blanket question. Who is the most QB ready for the Big 12? And I would say that this is number 1 UCF and number 2 BYU. But, so we could be surprised. But I think of the 4, you're talking about John Rice Plumlee being, maybe even in the top tier of quarterbacks in the league starting off already. And then Keaton Slovis is very experienced, but he's bounced around a lot. So hopefully for BYU fans, this is the one that he can really make his mark on.
Yeah, so most quarterback ready of the new 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Plumlee, very clearly Plumlee for right now. Slovis, I think there's, potential there. As far as Donovan Smith in Houston, I mean, he can't turn the ball over like he did last year for Texas Tech. But he's a good athlete who can make some plays. I mean, if he's on, he can definitely hurt you. But I wouldn't put him above John Rice Plumlee, and that leaves
Emory Jones.
Huh?
Emory Jones.
Yeah. He's definitely over Emory Jones, who's been on a couple of other teams now at this point and is on his third roster. But he looks to be the guy in Cincinnati. And yeah, I think John Rice Plumlee is certainly the leader in this category.
Number 4 is BYU's recent scheduling a benefit. They've scheduled a mostly Power 5 schedule for the last, half a decade for sure. Does that help them this year going in? I wonder. Probably the answer to that question is how strong is the roster overall. A couple years ago when they essentially won the Pac-12, I would have said, yeah, if that team was coming in, then sure. But, granted, they've been through a couple of iterations of the roster at this point. But I do wonder, maybe not even right away year 1, but can they be ready faster because they've played and they'll have veterans on that team who've played tougher schedules year in and year out?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this because I have debated it on a couple of different occasions when just writing about BYU or just thinking in general about them. I would think so, but I also know that, to what extent are we talking about is their schedule so much better than everybody else's? You play this and that other Power 5 team, but is that all that different just because of their name than what Cincy was playing in the AAC necessarily when they were playing like a hot Houston team or a hot, UCF or whoever the flavor of the year was? I would think so, just because they've shown that they have no fear in going toe-to-toe and swinging with anybody, and they've kind of developed a reputation as well as being somebody who's not scared to play anybody. So I lean yes, but I don't have 100% belief that they're not gonna have any hard time at all. They're just gonna roll right in, and it's not gonna be any different. I do think there is an element of the week after week after week nature, and yeah, you might not have a bunch of blue bloods either, including OU, Texas, or Post, but you have a lot of teams that are that tier right below that. When you play an Oklahoma State and an Iowa State and a Baylor and a Tech and a TCU, I know it doesn't pop off the ratings meter, but that's a grind of a damn schedule, depending on how that's lined up. So I do think there will be some slight adjustment.
Yeah. Number 3 is Houston's – that's number 2. How fast can Cincy rebuild? Because they've been a little gutted roster-wise, and this is the most roster turnover they've had because Luke Fickell went to Wisconsin. You got Scott Satterfield coming in. Emory Jones, we just talked about, is the new quarterback. How fast can they rebuild and start to compete in a Power 5 league? Again, for them, they would love to be able to come into a Power 5 league a couple years ago, even if maybe it wouldn't have wound them up in the CFP because they might not have been able to roll through undefeated. But that team could have come into the Big 12 and won a lot of games a couple years ago. Obviously, they were in the college football playoff. They were afraid of no one and ready to go. But this is a very different team now than was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I just don't think they have an identity anymore. Luke Fickell was that identity, and granted, they've had plenty of other coaches who have had success there that went on to do great things. Cincy has proven that they can find someone else to keep the momentum going, even if there's little blips or little interruptions. So, maybe Satterfield's the next in line as far as that goes, the Fickles, the Brian Kellys, and so on. But, yeah, I just don't have a great grasp for them because I'm not super high on Emory Jones. I wasn't super high on Ben Bryant either if he had decided to have come back. Skill-wise, I think there's some talent, but I just don't have as much of a great feel for them as I do for perhaps some of the others because there's just a lot of questions about what's like this whole transition, and what to make of who they have on the roster and how good they could be as quickly as possible under Satterfield. So, yeah, they're just curious to me. We'll know, obviously, once they hit the field, how far along they are. But, yeah, that is a question to me is how fast can they get back. And look, when we're talking about getting back, we're talking about college football freaking playoff and not the expanded one, the 4. I mean, they broke through that mold of it can only be Power 5s, and that they shot through that. So there's so much potential there, but they did take a step back with Fickle's loss that really interrupted things.
Number 2 is Houston's schedule too tough year 1, and look, non-conference they have UTSA, which has become a really, really fun game to watch.
Buddy, that was 3 overtimes last year at the Alamo Dome.
Exactly, and that one's at home. But again, believe me, the Roadrunners are taking it very seriously with Jeff Traylor there. They've got TCU as their first Big 12 game, and it's at home, but still a team that was in the national championship game last year. They go to Lubbock. They host Texas. They go to Manhattan. They come to Waco. They host Oklahoma State, who both you and I said when we were talking about our conference rankings, people might be sleeping on them a little bit too much because this is the kind of laying in the weeds that Mike Gundy likes to do. And then at UCF to end the season, who most people think is the most ready team to have a good run in the Big 12. So it's going to be tough for Dana and the Cougs year 1 because I think West Virginia, has the toughest schedule of all of them because that also includes a really tough non-con schedule that they have. But I think Houston's a close second to that.
Iowa State's up there. Iowa State has a particularly tough schedule. But, yeah, Houston's definitely got one as well and probably a few more questions than Iowa State has. I don't think they're a bowl team right now. If they were to make a bowl game, I think that would be a huge thing for Dana Holgorsen. The good news is that at least on the field, he's not on the hot seat because they won 12 games 2 years ago, and they won 8 last year, and that was a disappointment because when you had Clayton Tune back and you had Tank Dell back and you had some of those guys, you still won 8 games, but that's not what you were expecting coming off of 12-2 the year before. You're thinking, double-digit wins again. So you're replacing some pretty talented guys. Donovan Smith, as I said a few moments ago, can be very hit or miss. So there are a lot of questions, and there is a tough schedule, and that's why I think, most people will probably peg them under 6 wins. But, barring just his personality being, so abrasive that it, makes somebody feel like they have to make a move. Like he's not on a hot seat as far as I'm concerned, as far as the winning part of it goes. He's won 20 games in the last 2 years, but there's going to be a little bit of a blip in that this season because there is going to be an adjustment for them. I just don't see how there's not.
Yeah. And number 1, can UCF keep Plumlee healthy? Can John Rice Plumlee, I say Houston, I say UCF. Can UCF keep John Rice Plumlee healthy? Look, Brandon Helwig seems to think that they might have the quarterback depth to withstand an injury like that, but I do think for them to make waves, I really think they need him to start 12 games. And he's a guy who runs a lot and very well, but that makes him susceptible to injury. The quarterback that they had that was backing him up, Mikey Keene, is not there anymore. He's off to a full-time starting opportunity. So this is going to be key to me to UCF. The best case scenario is keeping him, and then this is an obvious question of keeping everybody healthy, but I'm not sure if they have the depth, particularly at that position, to where if they lose him for a long stretch, they can have the start that they think that they can.
Absolutely not, buddy. I'm going to tell you right now, all the talk about UCF and them being the team that can best come in and win right away is revolving around him. You don't hear anybody else mentioned. It's all about Plumlee. So, that's the main reason why people are optimistic about them being able to transition better than Houston or BYU or Cincinnati. But they do run him a lot and use him a lot because that's how he's effective. and it did, take a little bit of wind out when he got banged up. So, that's kind of, to me, what it all revolves around is John Rice Plumlee and, whoever can help pick up the slack around him, but he's their star. And so, yeah, they need to keep their star upright. They need to keep their quarterback one upright. And if he can stay healthy, then we're in for some treats too, because he is fun to watch running the football. So, yeah, definitely a big concern, or a pivotal storyline for them this upcoming season.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for consuming this program, however it is that you are able to consume the program here on 365 Sports, or whether it's the podcasts through our partnership with Rogue Media, all of that. Thank you so much. We're back again live on Wednesday, guys. So we are taking the holiday weekend off.
Congrats to BYU and UCF and Houston and Cincinnati. Welcome officially here in a few hours to the Big 12 Conference. I know it's a big moment people have been waiting on, so congratulations to everybody who's excited over that. And, yes, we're going to enjoy some time away. July 4th, we're going to celebrate America.
Yeah. Go America.
Go America.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI,